I decided to watch the Da Vinci Code for the first time.
Oh, yeah?
Because we were doing this episode, which has a Da Vinci Code vibration to it.
Oh, it certainly does, yeah.
And
certainly an Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade vibration.
No,
as well.
I'd say more the Da Vinci Code than Indiana Jones because it's bad. It's a really shitty movie.
So wait, have you read the book, Da Vinci Code?
No, I never read the book. It's got to be better than that, right?
No, it's not. It's dog shit.
It's genuinely
fuck.
worse. It's so much worse because you have to sit there and the dumb guy is telling you a story. Like, it's not just a camera showing you a story. A dumb guy is being like, and of course, the professor of symbology saw a symbol. What else?
And then he will stop the narrative cold to explain what that symbol means for like 20 pages.
Yeah, and he uses a lot of stuff like Robert Langdon looked at the symbol sexily. And I'm like, how do you look at a symbol sexily?
And well, let me tell you, Tom Hanks did not deliver on that front. This was his least sexy movie.
What was his sexiest movie? That's
what was his sexiest movie? Obviously, The Terminal. He built that whole fountain.
He did for love.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast building a fountain for love. I'm the worst of all possible Bryans.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. And we are so excited today because we're back for yet another round of Whit's Endless Summer, the ongoing sub-series of our show, where we listen to episodes of Adventures in Odyssey, the Christian children's radio drama produced by Focus on the Family. And generally, when we do these episodes, we like to bring guests on and sort of subject them to this horror. So joining us today is an absolutely brilliant comedian and accomplished mime. You might know him from his bi-weekly Twitch stream, where he often plays a modded version of Grand Theft Auto 4, where all the cars travel at warp speed, or from the podcast he co-hosts with his wife Demi Lardner called Bigsofttitty.png, or from his live special Very Very, which is now available to stream and has been available to stream on Amazon Prime. He is also somehow the first Australian we've ever had on the show. Welcome, Tom Walker.
Hey, an honor for you guys to finally run out of guests with good internet connections and accents that make sense. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to dig into it. And I guess my first question before we dig into these actual episodes, Tom, is we got connected to do this by our mutual friend, Devin, who, of course, we love from Kill James Bond. And I'm wondering, did they relate anything about sort of the Whit's Endless Summer experience to you? And if so, how did these episodes compare with what you were expecting?
They gave me no information at all.
God, yes.
They gave me zero information at all. When you mentioned that we were going to be, listening to Whit's Odyssey, there's enough of it around that even trying to find out what it is before you sent me a very, very thoughtful primer document was almost impossible to work out what I was going to be doing. When an MP3 file arrived, I was gobsmacked. I could not fathom that radio plays existed outside of. You have to understand, in the UK, in Australia, it's not this way. In the UK, a radio play or like a comedic radio play seems to be like the thing they do for comedians so that they can keep them kind of chugging along. Like it's the thing they throw you when you've done. Yeah, if you've done like 5 years of comedy, you get access to 23 minutes on Channel 4 or whatever BBC is still kicking around, and you get to do like your funny little sketch about like, what I ordered 3 tarts. Yes, sir, we're in. Like whatever the fuck is happening with their sense of humor nowadays.
Sure.
This is the first time I've listened to a full-on radio drama in, I think, my entire life.
Okay, so before we get into the episodes, would love to hear about your first impressions.
It was like being sent a link to a Kingdom Hearts wiki.
Okay.
Like, it was correct. Such an overwhelming amount of information. None of it made sense. It all seemed to. I was like reading. So first off, you start off. Okay, so there's a guy called Whit. Okay, I've got my head around that.
Easy.
He runs what seems to be a paradise/ice cream parlor that the entire town is based around.
Correct.
Yes, he has previous experience in the military.
Yep.
Yes.
And it just at that point, and then you're like, oh, and by the way, he's not even there for most of this.
That's right.
Yes. Correct.
Our introduction to him in this is him doing a frankly an accent he should not be doing.
No, he should not.
And here's the thing, Tom. That is a time-honored tradition with Whit. This is a character. This is a voice that the previous voice actor who died also did.
Yes, that's why Whit wasn't there until now. This was the second actor they hired to play him because the original actor had passed away.
The Whits regenerate like the Doctor, but instead of regenerating, they just go to Israel.
Oh, so that guy rolls up and he's like, all right, first off, we're keeping the voice, right? Like I get to do the disguise. Yes.
Right.
Okay, good. Wonderful.
Right.
Yeah, no, this is completely nuts. I greatly appreciate it. But this was the document made me feel completely crazy. But it was so helpful. Yeah. Nothing that you said was a lie. It was possible to grok that immediately.
I think I told you, like, it might seem like a lot of this is a joke, but I promise you with your life that 100% of this is canon.
Yeah, it was very confusing because this second Whit is actually the time-traveled version of the first Whit. You see, a Whit has a nobody inside of his heart. That's the thing that's created.
Don't you fucking Twix or whatever me. Don't you dare. I've had too many conversations with non-binary autistic people to have one at the clock here. I'm not going back in the mines learning about Kingdom Hearts lore on a podcast about evangelical Christianity in this episode.
You see, Mr. Whittaker, it's called the gummy ship.
No, it's not.
Now I get the sense that you're on the level with us, Tom. You are fully on board with the insanity, and so we might as well start with talking about the first episode in this set, which is episode 313, Top This.
Don't mind if I do.
So this one's written by Marshall Younger, who is one of the regular writers of the show. He also directed it. It originally aired on May 6, 1995, and I think, Brian, you picked this episode for this set because it's all about like what it is to be a content creator in the modern economy, right?
Yeah, it's about a radio guy doing, Crying Brian Dern, recurring character based on LA radio personality Tom Lakis.
Right.
Doing a stunt. Doing a thing where he just does a marathon session of DJing the radio for days on end, which might be familiar to a Twitch streamer.
This did hit home. This did have moments where I was like, this is actually pretty good content. Like this is hidden within this radio play is such a beautifully modern idea where you get people listening. You don't have to put too much effort in because 4 minutes of it solid is just poker songs. And then you fade up and there's a guy there going, I hate poker. Like it's a high return idea here.
This one is like half of a very good episode and then half of a very bad episode sort of sandwiched together.
Yeah, there's a plot with the kids that I don't think I grabbed a single clip from because it is the most like Dobie Gillis ass fucking just wretched, worthless little story about a girl competing with her cousin too much.
Well, let me go ahead and frame up sort of both sides of what this story is, right? Because this is basically a standard issue A-B plot type structure.
Yep.
The A plot, I guess, is the one with these girls. We end up at Whit's End, which again, that's the soda shop at the center of town. Now, in this episode, Whit is not there. Yeah. In fact, it is Jack Allen who is sort of like Whit's surrogate. He's the other grandfatherly guy who came to town right after Hal Smith, Whit's original voice actor, died because they needed somebody else to provide that grandfatherly energy. Yeah. And Jack is basically just talking to these girls. One of them is named Hannah. She's come from the big city of Philadelphia to the podunk town of Odyssey, and she has a strongly competitive spirit.
What's interesting is we never really get into like her head at all about all of this. It is all about the reaction to it and how sometimes you just kind of have to submit to like your very dominant friend is basically the message I got from it. The onus is not on her to change. The onus is not on her to be less annoying or for her to be less competitive, but that sometimes it is just easier to just let shit go.
Just give up. I love this message because it's so kind of out of left field for American Protestantism. Is like sometimes you just need to stop trying. You need to quit.
Yeah, just
you need
tap out.
to quit and lie to your cousin and just be like, it's okay, you win. I'm done achieving excellence here. It's very Gen X.
What we really want to focus on here is the trials and tribulations of one Brian Dern. So Brian Dern is a radio DJ in Odyssey.
He's the only radio DJ.
I guess.
He's the guy that all the political debates happen with. He made the mayor sit on the Sibian.
Right. Well, and he's a shock jock, but
Fully
he
closed, but he does have to just sit there as long as he can. Just kind of, don't worry, Miss Morris, not plugged in.
Yeah.
It's this weird thing, too. And I'm sure you noticed this, Tom, where like he is framed up as sort of being this, liberal, basically. Like he has these values that are antagonistic to the wholesome values of the town, but they can't portray his shock value in a meaningful way because it's a show for Christian children.
Yeah.
Yes. He comes across as being an evangelical Christian radio man because all the things he's saying are in their world instead of being like, I don't know, Mother Mary's pussy was being used today by it's just like the most horrifying things. Like if this is based on Tom Likas is like one of the most reprehensible men alive.
He is disgusting. Well, the writers didn't know who Tom Likas is. They kind of based him, I guess, loosely off of what they heard Howard Stern was like.
Okay.
The voice actor, Corey Burton, came in and he was like, well, he's from California. And he's like, I can do a Tom Likas impression. So he just screams into the microphone.
Yeah, we've got a clip here, right?
Yep. This is him doing some of his trademark toilet humor.
This is Crying Brian Dern, and it's Nausea Week on Odyssey 105. Now, if you hear me say any word this week that has to do with being sick to your stomach, be the fifth caller and you'll win a $100 gift certificate from Pete's Gas and Chow. You can buy about 50,000 strips of beef jerky with that. It's Odyssey 105, the only station that gives you nausea that lasts a week.
So that's as far as I can take it. He says nausea a bunch.
Yeah, and you can tell that this is a Marshall Younger episode because all of a sudden there's a lot of businesses being named.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of like details about those businesses, and he's building up the lore of the town. You can see him like while writing the episode with an enormous map of Odyssey behind him, just putting up string and being like, "We'll figure it out." And that's why I love this episode. I love Marshall Younger as a writer because that's my shit.
Gas and Chow ends up being a great invention, actually, and I'm sad I didn't put it into my City Skylines town.
People who have not like listened to Wits on the Summer before, and that may be you, and if you're here for the first time, welcome.
Yeah.
There are really three writers who are at the core of Adventures in Odyssey. It's this guy who's writing this one, Marshall Younger. As AJ was saying, he's the lore guy. He cares a lot about like long running storylines, the way that little bits and pieces connect together, and just overarching plot ideas. There is Phil Lawler, who you can't spell Lawler without lol because he's very funny.
Yeah, he's exactly who you would think of when you think of a conservative Christian writing children's radio shows. He's just a Facebook grandpa.
He generally uses his Facebook presence to slam ideas down people's throat and uses the radio show to do the same.
In 2020, he spent every single day he would make a status on Facebook of how many people survived getting COVID.
What?
Oh my God.
He did that for almost 2 years.
Sometimes I feel bad about attacking Phil Lawler, and then I just learn a new fact about it, and it's like learning a new fact about the smoke monster. Like, I'm fine. Like, absolutely ripping
We get
this
it,
motherfucker
AJ.
to
You're
shreds.
rewatching Lost.
It's so good. Season 5 is so fun.
But then the third writer, and the one who we're going to hear in the episodes coming up, is Paul McCusker. He fancies himself a bit more of an intellectual, more of an ideas man.
Reads a lot of Rod Dreher in his spare time. Not joking.
I just wanted to frame that up about these writers, too, because, Tom, I'm curious, coming into this fresh, how the writing hit you. What was jumping out at you about this?
The first thing is how incredibly inoffensive it is when, and this is a byproduct of me listening to the three-parter first. I would have known this differently if I'd gone about the single episode first. When the three-parter ended with a straight to camera in a warm woman's voice that had not been heard before, which in this episode is something like, I believe it's something like, it's great to try and be your best as long as it doesn't get in the way of, loving who you are, or whatever the fuck moral is attached here. That at the end of the 3-part, I felt like it flashbanged me. Yes. The idea that what was being said in this was not obvious enough for the children to get is so insane to me. The thing that definitely stood out to me in the writing is the amount of lore that dropped and the amount that, and this is I guess in part to do with it being like an evangelical Christian thing. And no offense to the host of the podcast.
None taken, I promise.
Everybody sounds the same.
Yes. Yes, we sure do.
So it's hard to tell the voices of the characters in the town apart. But I assume because they are all, and again, no offense to the people on the call, they are all the same ethnicity with varying lengths of hair.
Yes. Correct.
There's 70 different characters. Like the idea that I would be able to tell the cousins apart is crazy.
That's rude, frankly. Yeah.
Yes. All of the voices are essentially the same because they are all, from this small town thing where no one is doing a different voice apart from Crying Brian, who does differentiate himself also by little bits of musical cues, I'm also been fucking so distracted by the idea. Sorry, I'm on the wiki for Top This just to refresh myself.
Oh, sure.
And I'm seeing that the Adventures in Odyssey wiki has a subcategory for episodes with themes of Christian living. How is that not every single episode? How fucking dare you have a separate, what do you mean?
That's nuts.
What could possibly not be included?
Christian living, I guess maybe that just means the more slice of life episodes as opposed to the ones where they go back in time and become slaves to ancient Egypt or whatever.
Yeah.
I believe there was one where they had a hyper realistic simulation of hell that changed the trajectory of someone's life.
That's right. Yep. We hear a little more of Crying Brian Dern, right? And we cut to an ad. Brian, you pulled the clip of this ad read. Let's hear it.
Introducing Jumbo Fork, the biggest fork you'll ever see in your life. Get Jumbo Fork and get it all in your mouth. Available at Pete's Gas and Chow, your beef jerky co-op.
This is the most distressingly horny Odyssey has ever been. In a way,
get it all in your mouth.
Tom, you mentioned this to me too. You sent me a message being like, why are they so horny?
In the 3-parter, it is really notable for me because, again, they're not able to do anything. So you have a man flirting with his fiance. And can I buy you a cup of coffee? And it's like, bro, you should know. You should know. You should be able to, draw her body in the dark. You should be so familiar with every nook and cranny of those flaps. But instead you're just well, of course, I'm completely ignorant of the pleasures of the flesh, and so are you. Now you work at the NSA, so we're going to go ahead and fucking you've murdered more people than you've brought to orgasm is a bad ratio to have, but they can't hint at anything else.
Yeah, so I just wanted to go back to this very sensual ad here, right? Corey Burton's ad read.
What is going on?
Get it all in your mouth.
And we know that some of the good jokes in the show were just ad-libs by the actors, and I do have to wonder how much of this was Corey Burton just bringing stuff in here that Marshall Younger could have never dreamed of. And just getting one over a little bit on everybody else in the studio.
This doesn't feel like something they would have written.
No.
It's too... Yeah.
It's a joke, first of all.
Right.
It's an actual
this was
joke.
Funny. This is such a break from the traditional writing structure of the show, where it was like a little sketch. Hey, great job.
And it ends with the announcement that Pete's Gas and Chow is a beef jerky co-op.
Yes, that's such a funny. That's a actual good joke.
It doesn't say it's a gas station, which is what we were assuming. You get your car fueled up, you get some beef. No. This is a place that just does beef jerky. It's acknowledging the gas that you get from eating their beef jerky, and it also has a horizontal structure.
It's cooperatively owned. Yeah.
Right. What would your job be on the beef jerky commune?
Seasoning.
I would be the butcher. I would.
Oh God!
What? Somebody's got to do it.
I know. I guess that's true.
Yeah. Wow. Seasoning getting all high and mighty with the butcher, where would you be without the meat?
Exactly.
I think there'd be a locked room with me in it, and whenever anyone needed to let off steam, they could go in there and do whatever they wanted.
That'd
kind of be my role in the commune.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the jerky cut from you, slice by slice?
God, I mean, I've been trying to lose weight, so you know what, that would actually be a real. Finally bringing back the all-male reboot of The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. Finally, a role for men in their 30s.
Okay, cool. I think we've got the basic plan. If you'd like to join our jerky co-op, let us know. Drop in the comments what role you would like to have in the jerky co-op, and we'll get back to you.
There's a co-op in Odyssey is also insane. Anyway, Josh, continue.
And it's like the single sponsor of their one radio station.
It's just so strange. Like, I did you grab the clip that I sent you, Brian, of the contest, the next contest that he does?
Yeah, he does it. So this is like the classic rock station, right? This is classic rock Odyssey. And Brian Dern has, he just does little silly things. He's a shock jock, so he just makes very inoffensive jokes like this contest here.
Okay, we still don't have a winner in the What Is He Saying contest. I'll play the clip again. All right, let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What is he saying?
I think he said the monkey man has no place in the circle of confusion.
This isn't anything.
No, but it's very memorable.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
For some reason, I got jump scared by this because I remember listening to this clip when I was a little kid and thinking that it was the funniest thing I had ever heard.
When I programmed this episode, I was like, this is the one thing I remember from it is John Campbell singing gibberish and people calling in to interpret it.
And I think that speaks very poorly on me as a child, actually, that I thought this was really funny. But Tom, curious to hear what you think.
I think it makes sense that you thought this was very funny because I think this is like appealing to a huge thing that kids like, which is like, oh, I'm like the grown-ups. I'm noticing something that grown-ups have noticed, which is my grandpa says that music, you can't even understand what they're saying nowadays with their damn marble mouths. This Kurt Cobain fella, it makes sense to me because it really is baby's first observation that sometimes things can be hard to understand. I'll say this. I also applaud their bravery in having this go for, I want to say, like 5 identical beats.
Yes. It just keeps going. They keep calling in with other suggestions for what the lyric could be.
None of them are funny. None of it, like, he says they're monkey. Random. I guess monkey's a funny word, but that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, they're genuine attempts to try and get at what the thing was, and it doesn't ever escalate on itself. I think had they done one more, I might have laughed, though.
I applaud John Campbell for his work on this. It does sound believably like a weird rock song that you can't understand.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty decent idea for a radio station to do, right? Like just in terms of like an actual game to play, because you just gotta fill fucking time, man. Yeah. Sometimes on those radio shows, like you just gotta drag out the clock. So like, I think it's a fine idea for all that. I wish it were funnier.
Well, Tom, you had mentioned, the radio drama thing that every British comedian gets the opportunity to do. I'm assuming there isn't something like that with like Triple J or whatever, or
no. Okay. I think if you tried to get your average Australian to listen to a whimsical audio exploration of a small town, you would end up on the ground wondering where your glasses went. Like you would be beaten real hard, real quick. The idea of one of those coming out of a Makita radio on the job site is real good to me. But I think it is one of those things where like it's a protected species surviving only in a select few ecosystems.
Yes.
And one of them is like this one where you cannot have anything challenging or strange and it can be controlled. And the other one is for whatever reason, I don't know, UK comedians who aren't big enough to go on panel shows, which is kind of the second small enclosure they usher them into.
It's between Edinburgh Fringe and QI. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
These are the last 2 UK comedians in the world.
So I was popping down to Greg's. I was popping down to Greg's.
Tots, bring me tots.
This show, I mean, well, Adventures in Odyssey is a really good sign. If you come across anyone in your life in America who knows what this show is, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you grew up weird and you probably never got over it.
Yeah.
And there is an Australian audience for Adventures in Odyssey. And I imagine that those households must be so bizarre.
It's strange, but well, and I know, we can only reflect our upbringing and our knowledge of ourselves, but I do see Australia as being so fundamentally like horrible and crude. Like, it's so strange to think of being a prude in an Australian accent. Like, it's insane to me to think of an Australian like chastising someone for being like, hey, now, come on, mate. We don't use language like that down here. It's like, bro, you heard your fucking accent. We use like the English left us in the sun. We've gone off. It's not good.
Did you have any experience with like Christianity or church or anything like that growing up, or was that totally outside of your frame of reference?
I went to a Christian school. I went to like Christian private schools when I was growing up, but not I want Protestant. Nothing like forcefully Christian, I want to say.
No one ever dunked you under a river at any point?
No, my
brought
wife,
you up in a new life?
Demi did go get baptized as a kid because she she had like a free day. She took herself off to get baptized because the church near her had a PlayStation.
Hell yeah. Wait, she got baptized and got a free PlayStation out of it?
No. There was just like there was a room she could go to play the PlayStation. And then after a while, the adult, people kept sidling up to her and being like, you want to get baptized? And she was like, all right. Then she walked home. She came in and her single dad sees her standing in the doorway sopping wet. And he's like, what have you been up to? I got baptized. Like this little fucking rat running around getting herself into scrapes.
What games was she playing on the church PlayStation?
Croc.
Croc?
Yes!
Well, okay, we'd all get baptized for Croc.
I'd say. Yeah. Did any of you ever play the Emperor's New Groove game that they built on the Croc engine? It's a pretty fun game. Yeah. If you like Croc, you'll love the Emperor's New Groove on PlayStation.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about those old Disney games lately on the internet because people are learning that the Piglet's Big Movie game is a survival horror game.
What?
Yeah.
And Piglet walks around these cavernous mansions with a fixed camera angle and heffalumps and woozles just kind of drifting into him.
Wait, does he have tank controls and everything?
Uh-huh. Well, I don't know if it's tank controls. It might be regular, but it's still static camera, PS2 horror kind of thing.
You know what's a really good example of something that is horrifying?
Yeah.
Polka music.
Okay. Come on. What are you, Jim Davis?
Of Garfield?
Of Garfield?
Yeah,
polka is always a really easy punchline for Jim Davis.
Why don't we go ahead and listen to what ends up happening with Brian Dern's show?
No, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't play this stuff. And I won't. I won't do it, you hear me? I'll die before I play one more polka!
He plays the worst soft rock you've ever heard in your life.
Nobody can stop me.
Hey.
I don't have to take this.
I was conceived
I'm the
to this
DJ
song.
on this station, and I'll play whatever I want. That's right. You hear me, boss? Are you listening? Crying Brian Dern is back. I want a new format. I want good music. I want to play songs with titles that don't include cities in Wisconsin. And I'm not leaving until I get it. Lock the doors. I've taken over the studio.
So Brian has mounted a mutiny, I guess, against his producer, who has forcibly made him change the format from his conventional format to 24/7 polka ?
Yeah, because that's going to get the community college students into back into listening to their station.
I mean, it worked for Weird Al Yankovic.
You keep Weird Al's name out of your mouth in this context.
but that's what I'm saying is that's what he would do on his college radio. He would play polka, and that would get people in.
I got you.
Yeah. Well, that's just because he couldn't resist his Slovenian roots. And who can?
God.
I just worried for a moment that people would think that we are favorably comparing this to Weird Al, and that's something I could not
at all.
tolerate.
No. I would argue that Weird Al is the opposite of Adventures in Odyssey.
Explain.
Yeah, no, I'm curious about that.
What are the polarities here, AJ?
Yeah.
Weird Al has brought joy to children everywhere and has never traumatized a single one of my co-hosts.
Okay.
Whereas Adventures in Odyssey, 2 for 3. So
that's a real shame. That's a real shame that Weird Al couldn't even get one of us.
Yeah. Not you either, Tom? You didn't try.
No, he was trying for a while there. He was like hiding behind stuff, jumping out, but I was a brave child.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
It turns out that the station is actually doing very, very well. A lot of people start to listen to this broadcast.
I'm now in my 25th straight hour. It's been one day and 30 cups of coffee since I took over the studio, and I'm feeling great. If anybody tries to come in here and get me, that includes you, Casey. I see you out there sneaking around. If you get any closer, I'm going to take this coffee here and pour it into about $50,000 worth of equipment.
Again, he can't be violent. He can't pour the coffee on Casey. He has to pour it on the equipment. It's all like he's going totally deranged, and the performance is fun, but the writing is,
Yeah, I mean, I will say there's nothing that a conservative fears quite like the destruction of property. So, like, I get it. Like, this is actually scarier than throwing the coffee on Casey Kasem.
That's
who
right.
is standing just outside the door.
The station manager is Casey Kasem. They never got Casey Kasem on Adventures in Odyssey, but they did get Frank Welker once.
Oh, shit,
They're both
really?
cast members in Scooby-Doo. That's why I make the comparison.
Oh, okay.
Like, who doesn't know that?
Oh, that's the other thing, Tom. This show, one thing that it consistently gets is really, really high-profile voice talent.
Yes.
Like Jack Allen, for instance, the voice at the very beginning of this episode, the other grandfatherly figure, is also the voice of Scrooge McDuck from DuckTales.
Yeah, I mean, listening to it. So I've done like a tiny bit of voice acting, and these guys are really fucking good. Like they're so like there's something about that old-timey American warmth. Like the American warm accent that's so good to listen to.
This episode is also, I think, the first episode of Adventures in Odyssey, and I didn't clip her because her plotline was with the kids and it was just not interesting at all. But it's it has Mary Kay Bergman as the teacher. And Mary Kay Bergman is most well known for playing all of the women on South Park for the first couple seasons in the movie. I will clip her later. There are more episodes that she's in, some actually kind of interesting episodes that she's in. So we will talk about Mary Kay Bergman more in depth later on. But they're attracting huge talent in this show because when do you get to do a radio show? People are just, if you're doing voice acting, you're very lucky if you even get to do cartoons and video games. Usually it means you're doing commercials, you're doing instructional voiceover, you're doing all this other kind of stuff. So actually being able to act in a studio with other actors doing a more or less live to tape radio drama, why wouldn't you just take it on, even if you're not an evangelical Christian or a right-wing freak?
Well, in the sense that I get, too, is that they are given the opportunity to just kind of do what they want. You hear this a lot in the performance here of Brian Dern. Like, the more strung out and sleep exhausted he gets, the more deranged the performance gets.
Everything's kind of blurry. I can't seem to get this disc in the player. Forget it. Maybe I should sing a little song. I'll do a little song that my mother used to sing when... Wow. I never knew my thumb could do this. I know. Let's have a moment of silence for somebody. Are we at war or anything?
I feel like this has all got to be improvised, right?
Yeah, it's too good. It's
too
just
good.
genuinely
It's really
good.
Tom, just so you know, a lot of this show is like, obviously Brian and Josh grew up with this show and it informed a lot of their, sensibilities, let's say. And it is always fun to go back and listen and find a character that I've just heard one of them do before, because this is a Brian Alford performance.
Yeah.
If I've ever heard one. I've heard you do this exact voice and cadence before for one of our bits. It is uncanny.
It's always a horror when you find the key to someone just lying around. Like I live in fear that Demi, my wife, will one day like just happen upon a Rich Piana video and hear him say, all right. And like hear the way I've said the word I've said before we've gone out for a walk our entire relationship through like through the microphone of this incredibly steroided, like enlarged man. This is the kind of comedic performance that sticks with you. I completely understand. It's such like a live performance. And also these guys are, I have to assume if you're a voice actor doing like a performance like this, it is also a little bit like doing an ad internationally, right? Because it's like, well, who's going to find out? Also, I'm a voice actor. It's not like people are going to recognize me necessarily, especially in the 1995.
Yeah. Right.
Like, who is going to find out about your time voicing an evangelical Christian show?
Only if you do it for 20 years.
Well, right.
That's really the point. Yeah.
And now, obviously, in the internet era, you can't really skate below the surface like that anymore. No. But at this time, because it wasn't for the fucking money. I can tell you that. They were
getting paid $50 an episode flat.
No.
Yeah, it was non-union for a very long time.
Oh my God, fuck this.
Yes. I could just hear your mind expanding right now, Tom. It's
I was thinking that these guys were going to get paid like kings.
No, not even
so
a little
much
bit.
work. They've been doing it for so long. On like the top of their fields. Well, my God.
And you know what? I would argue that in some ways the show, the writing of this show kind of reflects what was going on with these people in real life, because they just kind of had to go back to the content grindstone over and over and over again just to get the pittance that Focus on the Family was willing to hand them.
Hey, they also gave them sandwiches. Sometimes you had to bring the bread.
Well, they always just got 2 fish and 5 loaves and thought that would be enough for everyone.
That's funny or funny.
Thought it worked once.
That was, Tom, I really appreciated, by the way, as long as we're talking about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Your Jesus flips a coin bit made me so happy.
An interesting, weird thing about that is I did that bit in South Korea. I got like books to go, because I have like a mime hour. There's like a guy who was looking for like non-verbal stuff.
Sure. That makes sense.
Do in like, an international comedy festival thing. I go over there, incredibly poorly intended, like almost nobody in the show. I do that bit, which is just a bit where it gets announced as Jesus flips a coin. I flip a coin. I mime flipping a coin with a sound effect. I put it on the back of my hand. There's the sound of a coin hitting the ground. And then I'm like, what the fuck? And then I look down. I'm like, oh, I got a hole in my hand. Duh.
Right.
I do that bit. As soon as like Jesus flips a coin comes out through the speakers, it is like I've thrown a bucket of human shit on the audience. They are so immediately like closed up. And I was like, oh, this is a lot more conservative than I had thought an audience would be.
And there's a lot of hardcore evangelicals out there, too.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It was real bad. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like loudly in English afterwards. And that got them to be like, okay, cool. Yeah, he'd realize this. So I was like, sorry.
The Jesus flips a coin announcement, that ended up getting recorded in Korean then?
Yeah, I got a friend to record it in Korean.
Okay.
And you just heard this like collective intake of air.
Yeah, genuinely, like you could hear just a whole audience go.
Okay, so here's a question. How do you think that Jesus flips a coin would land for the creators of Adventures in Odyssey?
On the floor.
Come on.
I don't think they would like it. I think they would still see it as being like, well, you shouldn't play him. Hey, you can have fun with our faith, but that's our guy.
Yeah.
That's our fucking boy.
I think you're right.
There's actually, there's Pete Holmes's show. He had that show Crashing for a while. I was an extra in one of the episodes where he does Christian comedy and has some actual like church circuit comedians playing themselves like Fudge. Mark Lowry was not on. I was so upset. But he goes out there and the whole episode ends up being sort of about that line, about how far you could take it. And there's one point where he says someone might have been pissed off, like, oh, I bet Moses was pissed off when blah, blah, blah. And then everyone stops laughing. We were all just supposed to like lose interest after that point because he had just crossed the line. And I think it is interesting to watch the Christian comedians like Mark Lowry or Fudge and just see how naughty Christians allow themselves to be in that setting. Like, yes, I can. That one's kind of funny. It's a denominational joke or something like that.
Yeah, like seeing Alonzo Hamburger Jones or whatever. You know, he's able to expertly straddle the line of filthy and family friendly by just saying, instead of like, go fuck yourself, he says, hamburger ain't gonna happen. And it's just like the magic of the what tricks you do to either write material that like an audience like that finds acceptable, or what tricks you have to retroactively make that material that you already have, like make your 5 minutes acceptable
to make it more palatable to tastes that otherwise would not be willing to receive it.
I'm reminded of a friend of mine, a Sydney comedian called Ben Caution, who is a Jewish comedian who got booked to do a Jewish night. And when he turns up for it and realizes what he is doing is a humongous community dinner that is happening on the Sabbath. And so he turns up and they're like, well, we can't use electricity, so there's no microphone and we don't have a stage for you. Do you want us to get you a chair to stand on? And he was like, oh, I think that's okay. He starts doing his 5 minutes, like he's supposed to have 15. He has like 10 good minutes, and then he's like, I guess I'll just find 5 up there. Starts in on his 10 minutes, realizes in real time that the joke he's trying to do ends with him saying the C word, and he says, can I swear? The entire room screams, no! And then the guy he'd said, the guy who'd offered him a chair earlier comes back and says, I got you that chair. And then he has to clamber on top of a chair in front of everybody. Oh, sorry. Prior to this, also, a rabbi had said to him, you don't have your yarmulke. And he was like, yeah, no, I know. And he's like, hey, take this. And so he hands him his big rabbi hat. So he's doing comedy in that. He's then got I love Ben Caution so much. God. He's then trying to find material live to like rewrite this set list. At that point, when he's like struggling, this guy yells out, the rabbi who lent him his hat yells out, he's got no material. And it crushes harder than you've ever seen anything. Ben, and he says, I gave up. I said, I don't think I can do this. And he clambered off of the chair. The guy who brought him the chair, takes him off stage like he's James Brown after he's collapsed 3 times. like almost wrapping an invisible cloak around him. And then just as he's about to go through the door, the rabbi's like, hey, he's got my hat.
There was when we went to Colorado, and I don't remember if I told you about this, Tom, but we went out to Colorado Springs, the 3 of us, for the 1000th episode celebration of Adventures in Odyssey.
You mentioned that you did this, and then there was no more information other than it broke your brain. I believe.
Did. Because I think a big piece of what it was that exact dynamic where it was like, well, it wasn't that dynamic exactly, but it was the dynamic.
There was a very funny rabbi there. No.
I stole his hat.
No, it was the dynamic of creating something that they believe will be entertaining to this whole audience while remaining reasonably family friendly and sort of trying to be all things to all people
so in that a way may by all means save some.
So true, Brian. Yeah. But it just didn't fucking work. And, even going and reading the feedback about the thing on the Facebook groups and stuff like that.
Yeah, the fan groups, yeah.
Reading between the lines, you could tell that people were disappointed by the experience.
Yeah.
They weren't going to say it openly, obviously. But for a lot of people, I don't think it was quite what they hoped for because they didn't really know what they were signing up for.
Yeah.
And the people making the event didn't quite know what they wanted to deliver.
So it wasn't like they were just doing like a live podcast episode. They decided to branch out and do something special, aka something entirely outside of their area of expertise and that the audience liked.
Yeah, so they made an event. So there was an event where you went to the headquarters of Focus on the Family, the group that produces this, in Colorado Springs, and you could get a tour around the place, or kind of, well, not really a guided tour, but they had, it was sort of a line that you walked through and see all of their themed decorations and rooms, and they had trading cards and they had like t-shirts that they were selling that all got sold out in minutes because one guy bought all of them
and then was trying to resell them.
That's right.
They scalped at the fucking...
Yes. And I'm telling you, Tom, this is a
like 50.
grown-ass man.
Yeah, because like that's so obviously not Christian. I feel like you can get away with so much, like, but
it's not charitable, certainly. Yeah.
So there were also panels. They had panels with the actors. They had panels with the writers and stuff. And then that all built up to a big show that they did at the church that used to be pastored by Ted Haggard in the northern part of the city. And they had to do 2 performances of it because that's how many people came out. Like, it was thousands of people coming to see the show.
Did you guys, just the talk of the trading cards there, did you guys ever fuck around with Bible Battles, Redemption, or Animo?
Yes, redemption cards all the fucking way, baby.
TCG.
I don't know anything about this.
Whoa, oh my God, no. So you
activated.
you had like the good Bible characters, you had the evil Bible characters, but you could only, like the table was the evil characters, and you were supposed to play as competing teams of good characters, like magic cards, but it's the Bible. And you saved
it was like a PvPvE.
Yes.
For like what you're doing is you're 2 good people trying to, basically you're playing the to relate it to kind of, your world, it's kind of a Hannah and kind of a Hannah and Courtney situation where you're both competing to do the most good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like in this episode.
So you have to
Yes,
rescue the most souls. My friend Rosie from Hans Gruber and the Diehards, we've had her on this show a couple times. She has the redemption cards tie-in board game.
Unbelievable.
We need to do something like stream it or some shit. One of the things that I remember right off the top of my head is they had of the villain cards, all the satanic demon cards had a little dragon in the corner to indicate that they were bad guys.
Sweet.
One of them was Job's wife.
What?
Who for the most part is just like, yeah, shit really sucks for you. You'd be better off dead. And he's like, fuck you. You're right, but fuck you. I need to scrape myself with pottery some more.
What in the world?
There's also like, so it starts out incredibly traditional looking, like it's art.
Okay.
And then it becomes something much stranger. So if you click the link that I just dropped in there.
Oh, look at this guy. Okay,
oh
so
my God.
We're looking
look
here
at those thighs.
This
Holy
is
shit.
an angel card, I suppose. We're looking at Michael's card. Michael the angel. He's wearing this golden, I guess, breastplate type situation. He's got huge fucking muscles. The description here is a Bible verse, Daniel 10:13, which says, "But the price of the kingdom of Persian? Okay. but the prince of the kingdom of Persian withstood me 1 and 20 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia." And then in the upper
has very
left,
little to do with Michael.
Has very little to do with anything, really. And in the upper left-hand corner there is, I'm assuming this is like the, I don't know, elemental or something. There's like a cross. There's like the Christian cross.
Yeah, that means they're a good guy, yeah.
Okay, and then above the number 12/8, is that like attack defense points?
Oh God, I don't quite remember.
I've linked a pic there in the thing of Abraham.
Oh, there it is.
This is my favorite formatting, where it has the Bible quote where the rules text would be on a Magic the Gathering card, because that's more important, and then the rules text has to just kind of go on top of the portrait.
Yeah, it's quite hard to read.
Unreadable. It's.
I'm so glad that you know what this is. This is amazing for me.
AJ, I need you to read this ability text because this is so funny.
I absolutely will. I just want to point out that this is an evolution.
Yes.
That Abram evolves into Abraham.
That's
and
right.
Here's how he does it. Hero starts as Abram. After he makes a successful rescue, he becomes Abraham.
Of course.
And can interpret and prevent all special ability. And prevent all special abilities on all Lost Soul cards, except the Proverbs 22:14 Lost Souls card.
This is a more oral joke, but it's real, folks.
It's real.
Yeah, it looks like he's about to suck on God's teat. I mean,
It's
this
so
is
crazy.
Abraham's bosom.
Oh my God. Okay.
They did an expansion pack that was they finally did an allies move and made an expansion pack for Redemption years and years later, which was called The Women, which
Yes.
Redemption, the women, lost soul, women only. This lost soul may only be rescued by a female hero or the son of God.
Woke. They went woke, folks.
They went woke.
I am loving this, but I do need to bring us back to the topic at hand, unfortunately.
No, we'll play Redemption on Twitch sometime.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Redemption Twitch live stream when. Until then, Brian, did you want to play that clip of like Brian Dern just sort of like trapped in the cycle of content?
Yes. So they have finally revealed it's all a work. They have a dumb guy at the station who's just there to be like, well, aren't we going to get him out of there because he's taken over the station? And the boss is like, you were in the meeting. We know that we were doing all of this as a bit. And Brian has done 94 straight hours of radio broadcasting, and now he's going home.
Dern, you're doing a great job.
I'm going home.
Oh, you can't leave now. The phones are lighting up like a Christmas tree.
I don't care. I have no control over my left eyelid anymore. Look at that. Look at that.
Gross. Well, look, why don't you just have some coffee?
I'm going home. Yeah, it's illegal to keep me here for 90 hours straight. I'll take you to court.
All right. Just go back in for 10 minutes and we'll stage a police takeover. Then go home, get some rest, and be here early tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. Are you crazy?
Well, we need to talk about what we're going to do next.
Next?
We've got the city wrapped around our finger now. We got to keep him. We have to do something even bigger than this.
So there he is. Content. He will never escape the vortex.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this does feel like that feeling of like, oh, well, and now what? It's great being your own boss, but that also means you got no one to ask for time off from. You know, like
more money to be made tomorrow. What's the longest stream that you've done, Tom?
Oh God, I don't know. I think I did one 12-hour one. The coin one went for like 8 hours. That was the stream I did where I was going until I flipped heads 10 times in a row.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well,
Yeah,
you
that
made
was
it
bad.
worse for yourself too, because flipping tails 10 times made you add another. So you had to do 11.
So I ended up having to. I
shit.
flipped 10 tails in a row before I did it. So I had to flip 11 heads in a row, which was such a stupid fucking rule.
That's
Such a stupid fucking rule to add on. I think what I was doing was just responding to chat messages that said, "No, I don't have coin madness," while knowing I was full well I was in the grips of coin madness.
You were
dude.
definitely in the grips of coin madness. Yeah. One of the most memorable things I've seen on your stream was the How I Watch stream that you did.
How we watch,
How We Watch, where a whole bunch of different people sent in videos of themselves watching your stream on unconventional devices. And one person sent in a video of a Pit-Boy, like the little device from Fallout, like a toy, the video replica of that, a functional Pit-Boy. But then the video zoomed out and it was strapped to the hoof of an actual horse.
That was like probably the best just straight up content idea I've ever had because it outsourced all of it to people. And that rocked. It was so good just having people like do insane shit. Like multiple people had it up in like watching the stream in Terminal. Like it was just AC art.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, no, that rocked. I love horses, and to have one revealed to me just out of nowhere was such a treat.
You love horses. There's a buzzing sound that I'm hearing right now.
You're amongst friends, Tom.
Oh yeah,
Tom, you're amongst. Let's just say you're amongst friends. Ooh yeah.
AJ's Horse Corner.
I'm immediately remembering that I heard this on the episodes that I've listened to.
Okay. So I'm gonna be honest, guys. I didn't prep one for this week, so we're gonna be flying blind, like
okay,
like horse blind,
like putting horse blind, those blinders on me.
Okay,
you know where I want to watch all of my Tom Walker content.
I don't know, AJ. Where do you? Where?
Underneath a horse.
Oh, underneath a horse.
Wow.
Yeah.
Must be safe.
This has been AJ's Horse Corner. Ooh, yeah. AJ's Horse Corner.
Wow.
Not for the first time in my life, I was surprised by a horse.
What have we done with our lives for the past 3.5 years?
It's a great question. It is a great question.
Well, this is the thing, right? If only Brian had understood that the best way out of his conundrum is to simply source his material from his listeners, maybe he wouldn't be in the difficult place that he is. But ultimately, the core theme of this episode is, I guess, competition.
It's stop trying so hard because you'll only suffer, which is not a wrong thing, but it's also not exactly something you expect from this group of people.
Because the way that it ends is that we finally resolve Hannah and Courtney's story, which again, we have not been recapping. All you need to know is that
Courtney took her break.
She sure did. They just go back and forth trying to one up each other with like fundraisers and all this kind of shit. Tom, I was very impressed that you were able to remember their names, honestly. Like when the time that you were like Hannah and Courtney.
That was me quickly navigating back to an open wiki tab.
I couldn't I have my notes up and I couldn't remember like what I was like Hannah and Courtney. Who the fuck are they? Well, ultimately we do learn that is it Hannah who needs to just cede ground to Courtney or the other way around?
Wait, no.
Courtney is the local.
Cedes ground to Hannah.
Right.
Hannah is allowed to win.
Yeah.
And
right.
basically the moral of the story is, hey, who cares?
Right.
Chill out. This is something only Jack could have done. Is the like the chill the fuck out moral. Whit would never.
Yes. Yeah, but also it's a very confusing moral in this episode because so on the one hand, overdoing it leads you to like tragedy, but on the other hand, overdoing it works for Brian Dern. So it seems like
it also leads to tragedy
war with itself
because he can never go back to just hosting a couple hours a day like he used to.
Oh, okay. This is a forever thing now.
Yeah, they're gonna have to run him over with trucks. This is when he starts getting Sibians. The whole place is full of Sibians.
Of course.
They are able to say that he has a bunch of Sibians. They're not allowed to allude to what they're for.
But they can say the name. Yeah.
Am I wrong in thinking that usually in a show, the A and B plot are connected in some tiny way?
Yeah.
That was the thing that I found most discombobulating about this, is that it was like an A plot being interrupted by a radio broadcast that had no link to it whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah, because Brian Dern doesn't
They're not even listening to it in the background of the other story.
You know what I mean? There is this interesting formal choice that they make where Brian Dern is like going full bore into his marathon, and then they do this montage between Courtney and Hannah where they're doing, the car wash, the bake sale, the yard work.
Right.
And the music is playing under all of that as it's sort of trying to tell you like this, it's compressing time while also spending its moment with everyone, as though they have the radio on as they're doing all these activities.
It's very strange. Tom, what did you learn from this episode? What did
what are you going to take home with you?
Impress upon your heart?
Honestly, the Crying Brian has some good fucking ideas, and the dust has been settling on them long enough. You could probably just blow them off and treat them as your own. Like, I reckon what I'm taking away from that is, stage stuff works. Whip up the crowds.
Yeah.
Kayfabe's not dead.
Kayfabe's not dead too.
I like it. I like the thing of, pretending that you're being hard taken over by a poker station. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Me doing that, but hiring some like Call of Duty Warzone streamer to stream from my account. Until I finally take it back in a blaze of glory.
It could be good content, yeah. Well, if you end up doing it,
stay tuned for that.
That's right. We can say that we knew you when. But let's go ahead and move on now. I think to what we've previously been alluding to, which is this 3-parter. Now, just to frame this up before we get started, we've been talking, and Tom, you mentioned at the beginning of this episode, the character of John Avery Whittaker. He is the core character of this entire show. He is the moral center of this universe. He owns Wit's End, which is that soda shop in the middle of town. And for the past 2-ish years, he's been completely out of the picture because Hal Smith, his voice actor, passed away, and they didn't have a replacement for him. Now, just for a little bit of like what ended up happening next, behind the scenes, they weren't quite sure what they wanted to do. And so they sort of like, that's why they created the characters of Jack and Jason to sort of like bifurcate Whit's personality into his more loving grandfatherly side and his more impulsive side. And they've told this story many, many times. Somebody gave the writers a tip about a guy named Paul Herlinger.
So Paul Herlinger is a really interesting character because Hal Smith, who played the original Whit, has a ton of TV credits. He did cartoons. He did sitcoms. He was Otis the Drunk on the Andy Griffith Show. He was Goliath in Davy and Goliath.
He was Owl, right? In Winnie the Pooh?
He was Owl in Winnie the Pooh, yes. And Paul Herlinger, if you look him up, he did quite a lot, but he didn't do the kind of stuff that gets logged on IMDb. He didn't play a lot of characters in media. So Paul Herlinger was a New Yorker, went to Stuyvesant High School, and started getting into radio broadcasting when he was a teenager. After 2 years at NYU, he went to the Marine Corps, served his time there, and then in 1950...
Hey, I get it. You got to get out of NYU as fast as you can.
Did he serve in like Korea or something?
I think it was after Korea, actually.
Okay.
So he's about 10 years younger than Hal Smith. He was born in the late 20s. In 1956, he and his wife just packed up and moved to Seattle. And he got involved in radio in Seattle. He also did a very, very short-lived, like I'm talking like 3 or 4 months broadcast on TV in Tacoma called Nightmare Theater, because it was a big thing in the 50s and 60s to have like Vampira or Svengoolie, or, you know, like you'd show old horror movies and then do segments in between. And he would do this bit where he didn't talk. He just wore a big rubber Frankenstein mask and hobbled around while the host, you know, introduced the movie or whatever.
Okay.
Sure. So he did that. And then he got involved basically on the ground floor for public television. Because in the US, of course, we don't have any sort of reasonably state-sponsored TV of any kind.
Right.
But we did develop a pretty robust public TV infrastructure in the mid-late 20th century that is mostly all dead at this point.
And also, for those who are curious to learn more about it, just look up the history of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. That's really, you'll learn more about that, as well as, of course, PBS, the National Broadcasting Public Network.
And public broadcasting was really bolstered by local broadcasting. And so he stayed a fixture in Seattle-Tacoma area, produced a bunch of TV, and more importantly, narrated a shit ton of like PBS documentaries. And so that's most of the work that he also did a ton of commercials. He was all over the commercial scene. This guy made quite a bit of money. And someone who knew him, called up the Focus on the Family people, someone who's like some sort of mutual connection, and was like, hey, I know you're looking for a replacement for Whit. This guy has this like perfect grandfatherly deep voice. He doesn't do a lot of acting, although he did do some theater, local theater. But like you should talk to him. And they said like they called him up on the phone. He picked up and said hello, and they were like, that's the guy. They
just had goosebumps immediately because I mean,
they sound shockingly similar.
Really startling. So just for point of comparison here, right? So this is a clip from the episode where Eugene gets saved. This is a voicemail that was basically stitched together using old pieces of footage of Hal Smith.
Hey, anybody home? Anybody? Connie? Eugene, where are you? Hello? Eugene? We have to talk. It's something I've been praying about since I met you. It's very hard to explain. Well, I'd like to talk to you about that. Yes, I'll call tomorrow. Hold down the fort, will you, okay?
And this is the beginning of this episode, 355, The Search for Whit, Part 1, which includes a new voicemail from Whit, played by Paul Herlinger.
Hi, you've reached Whit's End. I'm sorry, but we're closed. But you can leave a message at the sound of the... Anyway, on,
Operate,
Thanks.
you worthless hunk of...
Good morning, Jason.
Hi, Eugene.
Are we having problems with our answering machine again?
What was your first clue?
The fact that you have it dissected and strewn all over the counter?
I came in this morning and all the buttons were flashing like a road accident. Am I the only one who's noticed how often things glitch up around here?
Well...
Maybe we need to have the wiring in the whole building looked at.
Ouch! Be careful.
Hi, Jason. It's me. I'm in Chicago.
It's Mr. Whittaker. Listen.
I thought you should know. I found something at the site that I brought it back here for tests. I sent you a package for safekeeping. Wish I had time to explain, but I'm rushing at a breakneck speed, so I may... Sorry I missed you.
I mean, it's interesting because this is the first we get of Herlinger, and obviously he comes back later in the episode with an accent. And I was just like, we're back in, baby. But, you know, I mean, Hal Smith's wit is a lot sharper. There's like there's an anger underneath there. Not quite like Stoika's levels, but there is like if you cross this man, he will have a flashback to his time in the Pacific, and you're going to have a really bad fucking time. Whereas Herlinger is like, he's the grandpa who gives you the Werthers, you know, like he's the favorite grandpa, at least in terms of the warmth of his voice, in terms of like his interactions. Like he's not catty in the way that Hal Smith is, which I think I'm going to ultimately end up missing because, God, when Whit was a bitch who would just live for drama, I mean, that was like prime Odyssey for me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's so much more comforting, and I don't know how to feel about it because it is, as I said before, the lure of this show, of Focus on the Family, is to lure you in with that, what you were saying, Tom, that warm American voice to
Old
bring
man
you
Yowie.
closer so it can, so it could just fully snap down on you like a bear trap. So on the one hand, I'm glad to have him around. On the other, I don't like that he then invites me in to his bear trap.
It answers my question that I have often about these kind of guys, which is, I guess some people just do sound like that.
Yeah.
Like some people just like, you'll know like a 14-year-old and he's like, well, I have homework to do. Like, it's like, I didn't realize that. I thought it was all like, voice training, and maybe it is, like maybe you like massage your way into it, but it is kind of, I don't know. It's cool to know that is just something that happens.
Yeah, and apparently that was the thing. Like even when he was a teenager, that's why he started getting into radio. Was like he was doing something at a radio station. Someone's like, "You should get on the microphone."
Okay. Yeah.
Some people just have like charisma 16, and that's what that manifest says.
Yeah, that's on his redemption card, actually.
What we learn from this voicemail is that Whit is now back in Chicago.
Yeah.
He has sent Jason a package which contains a micro cassette as well as a scrap of paper that says "The End" on it. So naturally, Jason takes a look at what's at the end of the tape.
I don't want to speculate. I have to fight the urge to jump to conclusions. But if this is what I think it is, I may have stumbled onto the most significant archaeological find since the Dead Sea Scrolls. Imagine it. The Q. If this fell into the wrong hands, Wait. I think someone's here. Remember,
Let me in.
Yeah, this is Paul McCusker getting back on his bullshit of like, ooh, what are all the different things I can do with tape?
It really makes everyone in this story seem impossibly stupid.
Yeah, they can't figure out that it's backwards tape.
Immediately figures out that it's backwards.
Takes them days to figure it out.
Like Eugene can program self-aware AI into the imagination station.
Jason's job with the intelligence agencies is code breaker.
He's a code breaker. Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that.
He figured out when Tasha was winking Morse code to him and he can't understand what a backwards tape sounds like.
This is another thing where it's sort of finding itself at tension with itself because, the idea here is you're trying to set something up that the kids listening can solve before the grown-ups do. And I imagine you want to do that in a way that makes it satisfying for the kids. But
I think in that case, you just have to make the characters kids.
Yeah.
Like put them on an equal, like they're also stupid like you.
Right.
Yeah, because it's not sad unless they immediately figure it out. Like, the kids will have figured it out, and then they don't tell you in this episode until like 20 minutes in, like right before the end of the first part. They're like, what if it's backwards? And the kid at that point has been screaming at the radio, it's backwards, it's backwards, it's backwards for like 15 minutes. And at that point, the dad is driving the sedan off the road. Like that's the end of the MacGruber family.
Surely you can just have him say it in a way that makes sense backwards. Don't actually have it be backwards tape. Just have him phonetically like say it like whatever the like learn it
do the Twin Peaks thing
backwards, because that also makes him seem smarter. That he can like do that. That he knows how to do that with simply his voice rather than have it be like a backwards tape. I don't know. It was.
No, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be much more fun.
Like, this is a show that condescends to its listenership constantly. And another really good example of that is how they talk about the so-called Q document.
Yeah.
The idea of, or do you have something about this, Brian?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, this is certainly, for most evangelicals, including the adults, this would be the first time any of them had ever heard of the Q document.
Right.
This is something only Paul McCusker, the writer of this episode, would have broached, right? Phil Lawler would never touch this idea.
Right, because this is a heresy.
Right. This starts to get into this idea of like extra biblical text, which can be pretty thorny.
Yeah.
When you find the stuff that does exist, or if you start trying to like prove the existence of your religion based on just how ancient each document is, Lee Strobel. And what happens here is you get introduced as a 7-year-old Brian Alford in the car with his very first Adventures in Odyssey album to the concept of something known as the Q source, or the Q document.
Where we go one, we go all.
That's right.
That was my immediate thing that made me very afraid. As soon as I heard the word Q in this context, I was like, fuck.
No, this is because this is 1996. This is long
This is the
before
origin.
This
is the origin of QAnon.
Yes, that's the reason I felt kind of sick to my stomach.
That's right.
It goes further back than I ever could have imagined.
Oh God! So the Q, I need to email Jake Rockatansky about this now.
So the Q source is a theoretical lost book. The Gospels, of course, were compiled by different people over time. The earliest ones were maybe published around 70 AD. The oldest fragment of a Gospel that we have is a fragment of the Gospel of John, which may have been the very last one written. And that fragment could be anywhere from dating back to 120 AD to like 200 AD. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke are very complete, right? They go from birth to death. Mark is just the ministry, and then John throws in like dialogues and other sort of theoretical concepts in there.
Yeah, it's much more Socratic in its approach.
Yeah, you've got Nicodemus, and you've got like in the beginning was Logos, and Logos was with God, and Logos was God. But Mark is probably the source gospel that we have, the one that remains. It probably serves as a source for Matthew and Luke, but then where are Matthew and Luke pulling the other stuff that's not in Mark? So you have a theoretical document known as Q. It could have been written by anyone. It could be a bunch of different smaller documents. It could be a number of oral traditions that were only finally written down, maybe in Matthew and then inspiring Luke or something like that. There's a lot of very serious academic questions about this. This isn't about proving or disproving religion, but it starts to become about that when your focus is apologetics. And the uncovering of an actual Q document would be pretty explosive in the academic world. There already has been one that has been uncovered called the Gospel of Thomas, which is what is called a sayings gospel. It's just a collection of sayings, and it probably is a source or further proves another source for some of the bits that end up in Matthew and Luke. But it's not an overall answer.
And I personally found it pretty weird that they were pulling in something with this level of detail. And I'm curious, Tom, because again, you're saying you don't really, I think, have a ton of frame of reference for like this kind of shit. Did this feel pretty out there to you?
Yeah, it also felt like it felt like such an insane broadening of the scope of the mystery, where I was like, so you're actually like positing the idea that maybe, what if this could all be proved wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it feels quite scary for them to countenance this because even without the idea that, this is thing, but thinking of like children listening to this and being like, wait, that's right. This is all stuff that people said.
Yeah.
And there's like no reason to really trust it over the other stuff people say. Hey, wait 1 minute.
Right. Which is, and then they square the circle in a really, really weird way at the end, which of course we'll get to.
Yeah.
Right. But it is also one of those things that if you're going to introduce this as a concept, you better have like an ironclad counter argument that will shut down any questions, because otherwise you've just put some questions in those kids' heads.
You've planted the seed, baby.
Yeah. And this is propaganda. At the end of the day, this is a form of propaganda. And so these episodes, I would argue, are terrible pieces of propaganda because they argue the other side and then don't properly counter argue it.
The way they dispose of these arguments does not do anything to permanently dispose of them. And in fact, what you've done is, as you say, planted a seed to just steadily lose followers from your church by being like, but what if it was a lie?
What if Dan Brown figured it all out?
Yeah, Dan Brown got it.
Yeah.
With his very good writing. Adapted into excellent movies.
Well, hey, speaking of really good writing, this episode continues with Eugene and Jason going to Chicago to get a hold of a guy named Professor Charles, who I guess is the professor who's working with Whit on this dig or whatever.
He's a professor of Charles. He's in
professor
that
of Charles.
Yeah.
Instead, they run into a guy who I just called Larry the Asshole. He's Professor Charles's long-suffering teacher's aide, I think.
Lover.
Research assistant?
Yeah.
We basically get no good information out of that. That scene could have been thrown away, and I probably could have just skipped in the outline.
Yeah, they don't need to go to Chicago, but it does. Again, they're so thick with lore. 355 episodes and nearly 10 years into this series at this point that they have to incorporate. They're like, well, doesn't Whit work for an encyclopedia company that's really a front for the NSA? Yes, and here's how we will address all of that
because it's headquartered in Chicago. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's another thing, too, is in this show, whenever you hear Chicago, big city, hookers and jazz,
very tall buildings.
Means there's going to be a lot of trouble afoot.
Roxy Hart.
So Jason decides to appeal to a higher authority.
From all appearances, Mr. Whittaker stumbled onto the find of the century, and yet he and the professor then discovered something else that was dramatic enough to send him or them out of the country. What could it possibly have been?
Beats me. But I think we should get back to the hotel room just to find out if my dad really did leave the country.
How are you going to do that when you don't know how to contact him?
By contacting someone bigger than my dad.
You're going to pray?
No. I'm going to call the U.S. government.
Whoa!
This is the second little, another thing that, Paul McCusker kind of gets away with that you wouldn't expect on the show. Earlier, he has Jason kind of do a fake swear, right? Where Jason's fixing the answering machine. He says, "You stupid piece of," and then it beeps.
Oh, okay.
Which is, as we were talking earlier about, walking up to that line, making kind of a naughty joke. To being like, no, I'm not going to pray to God. I'm going to go to the government.
It was strange to hear them presented as faces. It was strange to be like, yay, government. But I guess, in the children-facing area of this, you're not quite bringing in the bit where it's like, well, understand that. Or rather, I think there's an understanding in the evangelical Christian community that it is like, well, they got our back. They got our backs.
Yes.
There's an understanding here.
And you have to understand that Focus on the Family, the company that produces this show, has deep ties with the State Department and U.S. intelligence.
Right.
They're talking about their personal friends.
There's a lot of just informal ties, too, in that the intelligence community is heavily staffed by evangelical Christians.
Yes.
So it's as much a thing of Jason works for a part of the government, just like your daddy. That's definitely a piece of what's going on here as well.
I remember one of the scariest things in Colorado Springs was learning that there are just a whole bunch of congressional staffers who take Odyssey breaks.
God.
Yeah, we listened to a podcast where the current president of Focus on the Family talked about meeting Mike Pompeo and then finding out that there's a bunch of people working in the Pentagon who are like, oh yeah, we listened to Adventures in Odyssey during our lunch breaks. We adults in the federal government.
I would fucking hate to get drone struck by a guy who listens to G-rated entertainment,
Right?
man.
Like, I'm
no
right.
matter what.
God. Like,
You can't even bring back, say I'm nostalgic, sure, but there's something about drone footage set to when the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. I can't shake that.
Well, and what we get here in terms of how these personages are fleshed out, right, is this very strange scene where Jason reunites with Tasha, his fiance.
Seriously, Tasha, drop the company line and tell me what's going on here. What, is Dad working for the agency again?
Maybe. Maybe not.
Meaning you're not even sure? What, you think he's turned on you? Well, he's a double agent? He took the Q document and ran?
Wild guesses won't help anything.
Well, they're all I have until somebody gives me the facts.
There's no talking to you when you get like this.
Well, then tell me what's going on.
You were like this at Trickle Lake. Remember? When we sat by that fallen tree and you said... Oh, there's no point in talking about it now. I have to go.
This is all wrong, Tasha.
I know, but there's nothing else I can do.
This is his fiance.
Yes. Negative chemistry. Absolutely nothing going on between him. Could be like zero energy between them. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No hints that they're even like talking to each other.
Yeah, well, if they had not said that they were fiancés. Oh, for God's sake! If they had not said to each other that they were fiancés, I would be like, these people are like work colleagues at best. Yeah. And even then, like, they don't even like share a birthday cake together. Like this is like separate departments kind of chemistry.
Well, Tom, you work with your wife quite frequently. What does if we were to rewrite this and fix it? What would we do?
You would have her charge out of the room to have diarrhea halfway through the recording session. That's a must-have. That happens approximately 1 out of every 2 Big Soft Titty records. There would be a lot more chewing into the microphone if I had to guess. Also, This is just kind of the basic stuff that you miss when you're not, someone who works with their partner a lot.
Yeah,
but it can be easily rectified if they just give me the masters.
But I think that's a good point, actually. Like, it not even as a joke. Like,
they're formal with each other, right? They're just like they're doing the regular Law and Order dialogue right now.
And some of this we learn is because I guess Tasha is signaling to Jason that the room is bugged.
Even after this, the dialogue is exactly the same.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, they don't even refer to each other. Like, it doesn't seem like anyone else knows. I don't know. It's just so insanely formal. He doesn't use her name. We're saying I'm going to call the U.S. government. And then they reveal that it's his fiance, and it's like, well, bro, that you buried the lead there. You should have called her sweetie. Like,
they don't have pet names for each other.
Yeah.
It's Tasha and it's Jason.
That's
weird. Very strange.
So they end up, Jason and Eugene, getting on the plane to Israel to follow Whit to the archaeological dig. And on that plane, Eugene ends up figuring out the tape.
Okay, got it.
And here's how that last part sounds backwards.
Jason, remember, how I do is nothing great.
How I do is nothing great? That doesn't sound like Dad. For one thing, the grammar is awful.
Precisely, which makes me think there's a message within the message.
Wow. What's the message?
I have no idea.
Well, okay. Great. That's
this came out in 1995. So this whole time he's like scratching behind his ear with a loaded Glock. He's just like kicking his feet up on the fly, smoking a few cigarettes, kind of juggling box cutters, the way things used to be.
Well, look, they make it to Israel. They make it to Tel Aviv airport.
They sure do.
And
Alfred Brownlee.
Is that what it was? I thought it was Bromley. It doesn't fucking matter.
So Alfred Brownlee shows up and meets them. And if you guys remember, and you shouldn't, but I do, Alfred Brownlee is a character that has been mentioned before. He is the one who sent Whit the Jesus cloth. However many years ago we covered that episode.
The shroud, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this is his first appearance as a voice actor, or as a character being voiced by an actor, I should say.
Yeah.
So he meets them at the airport and lets them know what the stakes are.
Stay close to me. We're being watched.
We are?
By who?
I think I've narrowed it down to
2 different organizations.
Oh, only 2. What relief.
One calls itself the Symposium.
Sounds academic.
As a front, it is academic in nature. Liberal scholars who would like nothing more than to get their hands on Whit's find so they can disprove the claims of Jesus Christ.
As a front?
Oh, that's their public face. Behind the scenes, they're a group of psychopathic terrorists.
Oh, joy.
What's the other?
What?
They call themselves First Things. Again, on the surface, they're simply a conservative coalition to preserve the traditions of Scripture.
Okay.
They would view Whit's find as a clear threat and would want to snuff it out immediately.
Snuff it out how? By revoking his membership in the Archaeological Society?
Oh, they'll do whatever it takes. Violence is not beneath them. At the heart of both organizations is not a love of Scripture, but a desire for power.
Very expected, but still like interesting to hear the first use of the word liberal, like with the tone of cockroach, like hitting the syllables the same way. Yeah, one of those things that like is expected, but at that point it hadn't happened yet. So me as a newbie, I hadn't thought that it was going to be that. I don't know, out in the open.
Yeah, like nakedly ideological. But look, we finally come to a big revelation. A parchment is discovered. And that parchment has
wild allegations.
The latest revelation is what Whit and Professor Charles found towards the end of the parchment.
And what was that?
The story of Jesus was changed in a very important way. It said that Jesus died on the cross and didn't rise from the dead.
What?
It said the disciples had bribed the Roman soldiers and moved the body.
So people have been trying to spread that lie for years.
Maybe so, but this parchment gives specific instructions about where to find the buried bones of Jesus.
So, will they find the buried bones of Jesus Christ himself? What do you think? Well, I think you already know, but we're going to find out after the break, so stay tuned.
You've reached Mary Mulligan. Leave your name, number, and a brief message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks.
Hiya, Mary. It's Melvin. Your darling sweet baby brother calling on your birthday. Alright, I'm taking it by your lack of picking up that you are not in fact there, but are in fact currently at a rager of some sort, pounding back Jaeger like it's your literal job. So, I'll just say, happy 4-0, you feckin' weirdo! I can't believe that you are still somehow 4 years older than me, despite my body's increasing predilection to making me look 14 years older than you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but unfortunately a flight to the States costs money, and I have made the foolhardy decision to pursue a career in the music industry. Anyways, I obviously won't be there to give you your birthday punches in person, but I figure I can just give them to you over the phone, which, while certainly not ideal, will probably be significantly less painful for us both. So, here we go, alright? 1, 2, 3. Alright, it still was a little bit painful for me. As Uncle Charlie always said, for good luck and to keep the monsters away. Another year older, but hopefully another year none the wiser. You know, I was thinking the other day, remember when I wrote you that whole rock opera for your 14th birthday? Alright, it was only a couple of songs, but still, for a 10-year-old, that's pretty damn impressive. Mary Mulligan's at it again. Oh, she's at it again. I think in one of them you were battling the angels, was it? And it ended with you punching Jesus in the deck. God, Mum was pissed. But you told me it was the best present you'd ever received. I don't think I've ever been proud of anything as I was of that silly little show. Oh, speaking of being proud, a little birdie told me, and to immediately squash any and all surprise, yes, that little birdie was Mum, that somebody made head of research and development at bleeding Patmos. Hey, sis, Mel, again. Listen, the long and short of it is, I need money. I know, but I've been trying to find work. I've been busting my arse off, but I'm just a bit short. I've gotten really close on a couple of corporate gigs. Really, really close. But one of the executives may or may not have called my work like what he imagined hell sounded like, and I may or may not have dumped hot soup onto his lap, which I will admit is fully on me. Look, rent's due in a couple days, and they've already turned off my gas, and I just need a little something to tide me over to the end of the month. I'll pay you back, I promise. It's just a bit of a slump, that's all. Anyways, call me back. Either way, I miss hearing from you. But also, if you could send me like 600 quid, I would greatly appreciate. Mary, please pick up. The police rang me, said there's been some sort of accident. Please pick up. Mum is worried sick. I'm worried sick. Please, Mary, if you're there, just pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, Mary. Just pick up the phone. Hi, Mare. It's been a while. I guess I just missed hearing your voice. Anyways, happy birthday! I had some Jaeger to celebrate. Awful stuff. Truly, like drinking candied Drano. How could you ever stomach this? We served it at the funeral, as per your wishes. And you should have seen Uncle Charlie afterwards, loaded as all hell and puking in the fountain outside St. Anthony's. You would have laughed and laughed. And I was always jealous of you, you know. Your success, your stability, your life. I always felt like the failure of the family. You with your big cushy job and your aptitude for the sciences, and me barely scraping by, making stupid songs for stupid suits who wouldn't know music if it hit him in the feckin' face. You once told me, it's my job to map the stars. It's your job to tell us what they all mean. But I don't know what any of this means, Mare. I don't think it means anything. Just pain unending. You think the drink would make it stop, but it just harmonizes with it. This dull tone that drums under everything. And every once in a while it just cranks up the volume, and it is deafening. I don't know when it's gonna stop, and I need it to stop. I need it to stop. I'm sorry. It's your birthday. I shouldn't be so bad. So here's your 3 punches, as promised. Can't have a birthday without punches, right? Another year older and another year hopefully none the wiser. 1, 2, 3. Who's there? Fuck's sake. Ah, sure. Go ahead and disappear. What do I care? You forgot your envelope. Bleeding idiot. Full of tapes. A note. Ooh, a note. How mysterious. Mary Mulligan's at it again. Oh, she's at it again. Find her, Melvin, and bring her home. A friend. P.S. Mary, I gotta go, but I'll be seeing you soon. I swear on my life, I'll be seeing you soon.
I don't think that mime is a solitary activity. Like, to be honest, like, I'm very, like, much like just self-taught, like, oh, this would be funny. And then I, like, did a mime show. But I do think that you picture the child who it believes it's very close to the close-up magic child.
Yeah,
you know, the card trick boy wandering around, desperate to, well, this will get a friend or two.
Yeah, because you have done some formal training too,
I did
right?
École Philippe Gaulier, which was, it's a theater school that kind of specializes in clowning.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, very little mime stuff, some physical theater stuff. But basically I was over there with, the most prominent people, like, who I am now, like, some of my closest friends are the team behind like Zach Zucker and Vigo Van. So
I just saw Zach's show a few weeks ago. It's fucking great.
Oh hell yeah. Yeah. So Zach was like one of the best men at my wedding.
Amazing.
We I'm on his show every time Stamptown comes to Sydney.
That's fantastic.
And Demi is too. And yeah, we like bonded and met and loved each other there. But there you would find people who had like done mime stuff and like formally trained at mime schools.
Yeah.
And the thing that you realize about yourself is that as soon as someone's trying to do mime at you, like at you,
like aggressively
hated them.
just like walks up and starts miming at you without your consent.
Well, dude, it was so bad. So like all clown shit is just like the way he like gives feedback is just aggressively negative. He doesn't tell you what to do necessarily. He's just like, hey, realize that what you're doing right now, we fucking hate it. The audience hates it so much. And the way he'll do that is like, okay, go on stage and be funny. That's the one instruction you have.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. I had that in theater school. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like, it's fucking horrifying. And then when you are not funny, he'll be like, okay, cool. Well, that wasn't funny. AJ, what do you think? Was that funny? And then AJ has to say like, no. It was like, AJ. AJ said that. Tom, what do you think? Was that funny? I'd say no. I was like, and that's Tom. Tom hasn't been funny for 3 months. You know, he catch a few strays.
Does École Philippe Gaulier shit on mime? Because there is definitely like some hatred that clowns have for mimes that I've always found really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a funny fucking like the Warriors thing to hold in your mind. Yeah, because like mime is just like technicality, right? Like it's just a skill. Like it's something you can sit down and learn how to like put your hands so it looks like something's there or whatever. But it doesn't factor in, do people want to see that, or is it funny, or is it interesting in any way? It's just like you learning a shitty little dance and then doing it to people. So yeah, it sucks. Like he would constantly say like you like, he also is the Frenchest sounding man alive. He doesn't teach there anymore, but he was like, you have your shitty little mime, you have your shitty little character. We hate it. He's not human.
He was the guy. He was the guy that Hillary Clinton interviewed in that one documentary, right?
Yeah, with my buddy Natalie Palamides also there, which is so fucking funny. Dude, Natalie Palamides is there with Hillary and Chelsea Clinton, and I'm like, bro, I've seen Natalie chase a man around on stage with a fish and like hit him with the fish until the fish's head flew off, and she's sitting there like, wow, yeah, the role of a woman. So fucking look, this fucking animal sitting there with Hillary Clinton. She's more beast than person. She's like the grottiest person I know, and she's just sitting there with this fucking old clown and École Philippe Gaulier guy. But yeah, it's so funny.
That's good.
Look, had Hillary chased someone around with a fish on stage, maybe she would have won Michigan. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, if it had been a stage in Michigan, she would have shown up there at least once, and that would have been fucking great. But look, we're not here to talk about that. And unfortunately, we are as much fun as this conversation just now has been.
Conversation is good, but podcast is more difficult.
Yeah, it's so true. I have to do hard pivot back into this fucking bullshit, because we're back with The Search for Whit Part 2, which originally aired May 25, 1996. By the way, I forgot to mention, Part 1 of The Search for Whit originally aired on my 6th birthday.
Wow.
May 18, 1996. So how about that, folks? Anyway, we're at the dig site.
We're at Whit's trailer.
Whit's trailer by the dig site, and Jason finds a unique item, a key item. It's like a fucking, in a adventure game when you click on something and you're like, oh, I wonder what this is. It's that.
Oh, look, here's the needlepoint my sister did for Dad right before he left.
To always look to God, remembering his faithfulness, undertaking his ways, studying his word, and touching others with his love. Oh, I see, it's an acronym.
I thought he said it was needlepoint.
Oh, no, an acronym is when you take the first letter of a word or series of lines and they spell out a word. In this case, you see, T from to, R from remembering, U from undertaking, S from studying, and T from touching.
T-R-U-S-T. Trust. How clever.
Acrostic.
Yeah, I do.
The word they mean is acrostic.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
An acronym is what I am.
This is here for plot reasons, but I do love how authentically corny it is. This is something that Jana would have made for Whit in this milieu.
Yes.
Like, this is just the cheesiest fucking shit. And like every parent listening to this episode is like, I have one of those.
By the way, How I Do is nothing great. If you put 2 and 2 together, you immediately realize that is an acronym for hiding.
Which we already assumed he was doing.
So great. Then a guy named Benjamin busts into the trailer and he sounds like this.
Come on, let's go.
Don't anybody move a muscle.
Benjamin, put that gun away. It's me, Alfred.
Put that gun away, Benjamin.
Now, if you please put your hands in the air where I can see them.
Benjamin is a security guard for the site. He gets a little enthusiastic in his work. Benjamin, put the gun...
Please be quiet, Mr. Brownlee, and do as I say. I don't want anyone to get hurt. You, Jason Whittaker.
Yeah?
You'll oblige me by coming this way?
This is Phil Lawler, by the way. This is one of the writers of the show. Really
as Benjamin?
Yeah, as Benjamin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's affecting a much higher voice.
It sounds like a very shy racist.
I mean,
like
correct.
You've got your convictions.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, we can't say that.
Yeah,
but
we can.
I mean,
We can say whatever we want.
The performances, the character seems to be a very shy. What is being expertly portrayed here by a trained professional?
Yes, absolutely.
Like someone who has the idea of an accent, but is kind of like just not leaning into it super.
Yeah, this is just the Middle East guy accent.
Yeah.
What language does he speak? Who knows? It's Middle East guy.
Yeah, and basically what we learn is that Benjamin got a better offer than what Whit could offer him.
Yeah.
And so now he's shown up to kidnap Jason. So he abducts Jason and absconds with their car. And then Jason is basically in an interrogation scene where he like asks his captor, like, oh, who do you work for? You know, are you working for the symposium? Or are you working for First Things?
And it's at that point that Jason realizes the code, Whit is hiding, and so he just walks out.
Right.
And Benjamin, frustrated, goes back to his boss at either the symposium or First Things, who sounds like this.
What happened? What was I supposed to do?
Calm down, Benjamin. Don't worry. We have options. Come on up to the control room.
Don't know what that is.
No. So wait, I have a question here. Had we met the guy who this is before?
No.
Like, had we met Charles before?
No, sir.
So why do you need to disguise his voice?
Why does he need to disguise his voice from just Benjamin? Like, he wasn't.
Oh, right.
He wasn't talking to Jason with the robot voice.
Right. That's a good point.
Right.
Maybe
he's just talking to his
maybe
henchman.
he doesn't know the voice changer is on. Maybe he's just logging on with like the same settings from his other Zoom call where he's like, I don't know, maybe he's doing paranoia with some buddies or something.
Yeah. Or like a prank stream. Like he's like that one guy who calls the fucking Kit Boga who calls all of the scammers, you know? He was
doing
Finn
that.
This is actually the voice that he uses for his NPC stream.
Right.
Yeah.
I see.
That makes sense.
Ice
but
cream,
this
so
whole
good.
thing, it's Jason just leaves. Like, it feels like
he
that
just walks
scene in
out.
Arrested Development where Andy Richter's brother has Michael pinned up against the wall. He's like, you're actually in complete control of the situation. He slides right out.
Right.
Like, how can I take these villains seriously if you can just leave at any time?
This points to, once again, the constant trouble that this show finds itself in, where it wants to be exciting and scary, but it doesn't want to not be like a children's show. Now, do they show the same amount of restraint and tact when it comes to, I don't know, sending kids to hell? No. But for some reason,
Eugene was
when it
like
comes
16 when he went to hell, okay? He's
still
he
a
could
kid.
drive.
But like when it comes to, for some reason, grown-ass adults getting interrogated by bad guys, oh, that's just too much. That's too scary. I don't get it.
Well, they're like, McCusker, you got the bleep earlier, so that's the one adult thing you get for this.
Well, there's a problem with their three-parters where they've worked out an outline, realized that they need 3 episodes to get to it, but then put all the plot in the first and third episode.
Right.
And the second episode is just filler. Like, the villain doesn't show, like we talked about with the mystery a while back, where the villain didn't show up until the 3rd episode. And it's like, oh, it's a surprise that he's a villain. It's like, it's a surprise that he's a character.
For me, the most noteworthy thing that jumped out at me in this episode is what Jason says when he's describing how his dad, John Avery Whittaker, would behave when Jason was a child.
And when my dad hides, nobody'll find him. Hide and seek was a nightmare when we were kids. We spent weeks looking for him.
What? I mean, it's very clearly like an attempt at a joke, but the ramifications of it are haunting.
Yeah, I mean, you think Whit's an intelligence asset. Like, he probably did just leave for weeks and he'd be like, okay, it's time to play hide and seek.
It's these small little pieces that we get here and there, these little snatches of like, this man was violently physical with his children. He was very loudly, like, angry, vocally, yelling at them, berating them. And he would just disappear for weeks on end. So this is
send
not
them on like
painting.
some kind of goose chase where they'd have to find him in an abandoned church steeple 6 weeks after he had gone.
It's news to me that he was able to do all this while running a soda store or whatever the fuck it is. It seems like he is honestly maybe over-egging his responsibilities, suffering from burnout, just takes a little bit of time for himself. I understand it. Sometimes a kid can have a bad vibe, etc.
Self-care.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think you look at like the Christian NSA employee and think that he's going to have like the most uncomplicated relationship with his family.
I guess that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But this guy is supposed to be the moral center of the show.
Yes.
They've inadvertently created a much more complicated character than I think they intended.
Well, and to be fair, he wasn't running the soda shop at that time. He was a school teacher who was also writing the encyclopedia.
What?
He was right. Yeah, he was writing the books.
What we have is we've already established through Whit's like British guy friend that there are two sets of villains, two entire terrorist organizations, one of lib terrorists and one of conservative thugs.
The Symposium and First Things,
and we spend this entire episode with neither of them.
That's right.
And they only exist as a thing a guy says exists. And then you find out at the end that it's a lie. And it just didn't need to be there at all.
Turns out.
But it's a very pointed reference that Paul McCusker is making to very real things.
Oh.
So First Things, if that rings a bell for maybe you, Josh, and nobody else, that's a journal. That is a religious right-wing political journal.
Oh, so this is like a National Review type deal?
Yeah, a little bit more seemingly academic. It's got mostly Christian and Jewish, but also sometimes like Muslim writers. When Bill Clinton won re-election in 1996, just a few months after this episode aired, they published their issue titled "The End of Democracy?"
I remember. Okay, yeah.
Because there had also been a Supreme Court ruling against Colorado putting an amendment into their state constitution saying that they could discriminate against gay people.
Of course. By the way, in case you're wondering what First Things is up to now, I'm just taking a look at their website.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's great. It's so good.
In some of the headlines that I'm seeing from these journal articles, one of them is "Resist the Conception Machine."
Yeah.
Don't know what that means.
In vitro fertilization is what that means.
Modernity's self-destruct button.
Oh, God.
My favorite is this article, "Why Catholics Voted for Trump." And the last paragraph of it says, "Maybe, just maybe, a critical mass of American Catholics is finally taking off the kick me sign."
Oh, so true.
Don't go ahead and self-endow yourself as having a kick me sign on your back. I think
why did the Catholics put it there in the first place?
Yeah, come on.
Oh, wait, holy shit. How did you guys get this on there?
Oh my God. Dude, how embarrassing is it if when you go around the church and you take the Jesus off of the crucifix and you see that some ne'er-do-well stuck that sign to his back?
It says crucify me.
What the crown of thorns was.
It's his Inri sign on his back. So
when Judas went in to give him a kiss, he put a little crucify me sign right on his back there.
So interestingly enough, that same issue later that year had an article written by Chuck Colson, who had frequently written articles for First Things. First Things is very clearly being satirized by Paul McCusker here.
Okay.
Chuck Colson was his boss at Focus on the Family. He was a producer of Adventures in Odyssey.
And again, for those of you who don't know who Chuck Colson is, a criminal who assisted in the Watergate break-in.
Yeah, he was the guy, he was the fall guy for the Watergate break-in, and also one of the biggest psychos in Nixon's administration. He converted to Christianity because a Raytheon executive gave him a C.S. Lewis book.
Yep.
And so he got out of prison being like, I'm a new guy, and then just proceeded to be exactly the same guy.
But he was extremely influential in organizing a lot of aspects of the Christian right. And
yes,
I would argue that you actually don't get to Trump without prison fellowship and the work of Charles Colson. We'll have to do an episode about him at some point.
And God's Not Dead 2, which we just watched, the two real guys who are called up to the stand, Lee Strobel and the cop guy, they both write for the Colson Institute of Apologetics in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Damn it.
Everything goes back to Colorado.
Family.
Well, that's so fun.
Yeah.
And we're going to have even more fun, aren't we?
Yeah. So the other group is called the Symposium. The Libs.
Oh, the Symposium, yes.
The Lib terrorists. And the Symposium is referencing something called the Jesus Seminar, which is a far less incendiary overall, but I guess you could say that they were intentionally trying to provoke responses, but they're a group of academics, some less academic than others, including Paul Verhoeven for some reason, who are trying to reconstruct the historical Jesus, regardless of creed or scripture. And so they've written some books that I guess you could classify as incendiary. One of them is called The Five Gospels, where it compiles all the sayings of Christ as gathered in the Gospels and color codes them based on how likely they were to have been said by Jesus.
Sure.
Not too spicy.
It's so weird that they're real.
Yeah.
That's what really hits me, is he's using the real names of real organizations.
So he did change
in here.
Jesus Seminar to the Symposium, but yeah.
Okay. But again, just such weird little like idiosyncratic like hits that he's taking out here. Like this starts feeling more like Dante than anything. Like it's just like, here are all of my pettiest grievances. I'm going to get them out in my treatise about, I don't know, finding Jesus's bones for my children's show.
Yeah.
You know, like I get a hobby, man. I don't know.
This is his hobby.
I guess.
So we finally now get to the point that we have been teasing this whole time, the wild accent work.
Eugene gets on an elevator.
Hold that door, please.
Certainly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Which floor?
7th.
Oh, that's my floor, too.
Oh, how nice. You are an American?
Indeed I am.
Is it true what I hear about America? Everyone has a lot of money.
Oh, relatively speaking, I suppose that's true, but not for everyone.
Oh, then you might spare an old man some money.
I see. A donation, of course. I've got some change here.
I don't want your change. I want your wallet.
What are you doing? Why did you stop the elevator?
As I said, I want your wallet.
So it's mostly
what is he doing?
German?
What is he doing?
Do you think it's trying to be a Yiddish accent?
I don't know.
I think so.
I think he's trying to do Hal Smith's accent.
Well, because I still have Hal Smith doing his Yiddish accent right here.
Yeah, right.
Paul Herlinger can't live up to it, I gotta say.
No, he can't.
But I don't understand what Whit is doing here, really. I don't, nothing in he and Eugene's relationship up until this point would be like, you know what he'd appreciate? A mugging.
If I pretend to be a random Israeli mugger, yeah.
This felt insane. Initially, I was just like, oh, this is kind of like a weird, this is what the Middle East is like, you know, a little bit of like a weird racist thing. Also, not a great place for a mugging was what I was mainly thinking, where I was like, I think this isn't like a elevator, the bad plan of escape. My takeaway thought is, wow, that's really lucky that he's bad enough at accents that I can't work out if this is racist. Because I know it's definitely intending to be, but it's so unclear who he's trying to be that it might land on someone who's okay to do an accent of. It's like, like when... I don't know.
He spins the roulette wheel and it lands on Italian.
Yes, exactly. It feels like, oh, you know what? Maybe what you were aiming for there was like Cajun. Maybe you're the only person in history to try to do an impression of a white Cajun guy. Okay. I guess innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
Okay. But like, yeah, baffling accent, insane introduction from the character, because he then immediately reveals and goes into no, it's me, haha.
Yeah,
and he
exactly.
takes off the disguise. I would give so much for them to describe what he's taking off and how.
Right?
Yeah, so here is Whit revealing himself, exposing himself, if you will.
What kind of country is this?
I'm asking for your wallets, that's all. You know the one. Black, made of leather, given to you as a Christmas present 3 years ago. I assume you still have it.
Well, of course I still have it, but I wouldn't dream... Wait a minute. How could you possibly know that I have a black leather wallet that was given to me as a Christmas present?
Well, because I gave it to you.
What? But it's not possible.
Hi, Eugene.
Still doesn't get it.
Good to see you again.
Mr. Whittaker.
He's back, baby! Why did he do this?
He's like peeling off fake eyelids.
Yeah, why didn't he just stop the elevator and be like, hey, it's me,
Hey,
Whit.
it's me.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Let me just do this fake mugging for a second here.
I'd imagine he's at best wearing a Santa beard. Like that he just kind of like
well, we
pulls off
learn
and
later he
snaps
has a
back
bunch
on.
of different costumes because he's a janitor later.
I was picturing him reaching up and pulling down an incredibly pointy vizier beard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just a
I think that
Jafar
was in my
mask.
head. And I was like, I feel like this is the kind of genre of man that, given his geographical location, will be wearing a turban as a disguise no matter what he is intending to portray.
How did it hit you later on then when Eugene said that he wore a turban as a disguise? Were you fully stun-locked?
It made so much sense to me. Look, this is just like, you know when you see the Alolan version of a Pokemon and it's different in fundamental ways? That's the regional difference. You put a guy like that over there for long enough, he's going to start wearing the turban. And like
he just has one very long neck. Yeah.
Now Whit's back, right? The center of the moral universe has finally returned.
He doesn't actually return to Odyssey for a number of episodes for some reason.
Right.
They do like 4 or 5 episodes before he has his grand return episode.
I'm wondering if maybe it was just one of those things where it was a production thing and they already had other episodes in the can or something.
That could be. Yeah, they were like,
sure.
Jack needs to get one over on Bart for a minute here.
Yeah.
But I will also say that the way they like end it, like the final line that Whit has in this, implies to me that this might have also just been like a test balloon. Been like, oh, do people still want Whit?
Yeah.
You know? Because it is the most unsure and quite frankly menacing line I've heard out of Herlinger so far. It's only been a couple episodes, but Jesus.
So anyway, we learn what it is that Whit has actually found.
I'll say only that I have found a genuine first century parchment that gives every appearance of being a sort of gospel.
And the directions to the tomb?
It includes those.
I was afraid of that.
Eugene, hold on. I hope you know better than to hinge your faith on the latest archaeological finds.
But the evidence
is inconclusive. Just because it's a first century parchment doesn't mean it's true. And that's why I'm in hiding, so I can investigate what I found without a lot of political interference. This thing is so explosive, any group could use it to their own selfish ends. But I need you to keep your head, Eugene. Don't panic.
Yeah, this is interesting. So finding a first century document, an actual piece of papyrus or whatever, would certainly be explosive. We don't have any biblical text that is that old. New Testament text, I mean. It would be by far older than anything else. I don't know if you... There was a story that floated around 10 years ago when Hobby Lobby was building the Bible Museum. They bought this fragment off of a guy who picked it out of a mummy because they used to make like sarcophagus masks or mummy wrappings out of recycled writings. This is how we have fragments of the Achilles trilogy by Aeschylus. And someone found a fragment of the Book of Mark and was like, this is from 70 AD. Turns out it's not. It's from like the 3rd century. But
oh shit.
So it's not even as old as the oldest gospel that we have. But like, you know, this is something that is very politically fraught. And the way that archaeology in the Levant is politically fraught. Israel loves to just sort of bulldoze anything that's not part of what they would consider their own preferred form of history and their own preferred archaeological finds. So if this Q document, this extra biblical, non-canonical text, previously unexplored in any other later transcription, is not only something that exists that is not a forgery, but in fact older than any extant gospel that we have, yeah, that would be very important.
And this pulls back to something that I think you were saying earlier, Tom, that it's so weird that what seems to be just a framing device actually ends up being the focus of these episodes.
Yeah.
Like this trilogy ultimately ends up being about like, can you believe in the Bible? And also, can you believe in other ancient sources of potential truth that are related to the Bible? And it ends up falling down along, I think, such arbitrary lines. It doesn't back up any of its arguments, right?
It really fucks itself by saying basically, well, you know what? Science might sometimes challenge your faith, and there may well be evidence, you know, when it comes to your faith. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out. We've had a great show tonight. Make sure to come back next week when, we'll be having more ice cream for everybody. Yay.
Yeah. It's tonally just odd. I mean, as is the end of this episode, right? Because, suddenly this episode turns into a classic 1983 arcade game released by Taito Entertainment because it's some elevator action. Folks.
Oh my God. Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
Pull out the main set, everybody. We're expecting elevator action.
The longest applause in the history of the American podcast.
Thank you. I'm here all week,
Broadway
folks.
is back.
No, so it actually is nothing but elevator action for the rest of this.
Eugene gets held hostage on an elevator by a second guy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's such bad luck Also, so does he not remember why he was in the elevator?
He has to pee so bad.
And then there's also like none of this bullshit like matters, but it's just so funny because of the padding. There's also this cleaning lady who is actually a spy.
Yeah.
And they think that Whit is the cleaning lady. And then the cleaning lady pulls out a radio after they leave and she's like, hello, cleaning lady here.
Yeah, Whit has had like perfect OPSEC this entire time. He's been doing an entire fake dig while also doing a real dig entirely by himself, disguising himself in multiple different costumes, showing up in places where no one will find him, and then has a full conversation with Jason and Eugene with this cleaning lady standing 3 feet away from them.
But also, we get another scene of fucking Tasha and Jason speaking to each other.
This whole
like
thing is about
robots.
their relationship because Tasha is not a Christian.
That's right.
Jason is a Christian. So Tasha, as this unscrupulous NSA agent, doesn't really believe in the truth.
I completely missed this. I'm so sorry. I completely missed that she was not Christian.
Oh, they don't say it in this in this
They
trilogy
don't say it in
here.
this
It's just
episode.
a thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can
has
sort
lore.
of you can tell from her attitude that she's not a Christian.
She's not a Christian.
Because like this is the way that they write almost all the non-Christians is that they are more, I don't know, atavistic, I guess, in terms of like what drives them. And this is certainly the case for Tasha. She doesn't have the delicacy and sensitivity and femininity, really, that are required of a good Christian woman.
She likes to play the game. Jason's like, you love playing the game. And then he ends it with, I think, what is supposed to be a like James Bond like one-liner, a zinger.
Oh yeah, we got the clip.
Tell me this. The agency knows we're engaged, and yet they let you handle this case? Doesn't the idea of an emotional conflict of interest come to mind? Why would they send you to deal with this?
Because they figured I'd know you. They figured I'd know what you'd do and could anticipate your moves.
Uh-huh. And you agreed?
Yes.
Well, were they right? Have you anticipated my every move?
Mostly.
You know what my move is going to be right now?
You're going to walk out.
Good guess.
Jason?
That's actually not even the one I was thinking of. No, the one I was thinking of where he's just like, you love playing the game. And she's like, yeah. He's like, see you around the schoolyard. And then he walks away and I'm like, are you 14? What the fuck is happening? It's just, man, he's acting like a petulant child, and he's supposed to be in the right here.
Yeah, it doesn't
and that's
seem
what
like,
makes me mad.
It doesn't even seem like she likes her job that much. It just seems like she doesn't like him at all.
Yeah.
Yes,
Agreed.
Yeah.
And to be fair, and we didn't listen to these episodes, but he did call off the wedding because she's not a Christian. So they're in this weird limbo of being affianced while also in a long distance relationship.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they should have ended it when he canceled the wedding. Why are they still together? Why
She's getting
is
her
any of this
shit
happening?
fucked out over at NSA headquarters, whatever the fuck. They're in the dorm.
No,
she's. Yeah, no, you go ahead. I want to hear your theory.
You go ahead.
No, you talk about the woman.
she's got the honeymoon suite at Hotel Shalom.
Yes.
And she is getting railed till next Tuesday.
Israel's only hotel, Hotel Shalom.
Yeah.
She's getting
That's
fucked
right.
by
Yes.
some Mormon guy from Idaho.
Yeah.
Who's also like one of the deadliest field agents that they have. And he's plowing into her, just going, "Oh, gee willikers. Oh, this is even better than going and seeing The Sound of Music."
When Jason sees him leaving the room, he's like, "See you around the schoolyard."
Yes. That's what happens, AJ. You're right.
Hey, remember the symposium in First Things? No? We just did an entire episode about relationship drama?
Yeah, no. Whit is he's in another disguise now. We're in part 3 now, by the way. Whit is custodianing it up.
Quios
Jason,
custodiat ipsos custodian wit.
So true, Brian.
Yeah.
Jason thinks that he's sort of successfully avoided getting tailed to meet Whit in the place that they're in.
Yeah.
As does Eugene, who is now, I guess, wearing a turban. They all get on a bus to go to the middle of nowhere, which Whit has basically put some shit in a cave, which is then the equipment that he uses to dig the stuff up from the other dig site, the true dig site, not the decoy dig site.
Yeah.
And then they get tailed by a helicopter, and it sounds like this.
Hey, everybody ready?
Well, actually,
Go!
They're running for it. Perfect. Let's chase them to the bones.
Yikes!
Let's chase them to the
This
bones.
way. They'll never find us in the rocks.
They're going to that rock formation. We lost them. Don't panic. That formation is just what we've been looking for. Now pull back and find a safe place to land.
Well, they're going, but you can be sure they won't be gone for long.
So they're in Wadi Kidron right now. This is where the real dig is.
Okay.
Being followed by this helicopter. This is just in Jerusalem. This is like just east of the old city. Like there are neighborhoods and illegal settlements all around this spot. This is a huge necropolis, basically. Just east of here is the Mount of Olives, which has a bunch of burial sites there.
They're ducking behind the rocks.
That's much better.
To follow them behind that outcrop. Oh.
Yeah, no, that's
using
way.
a big stick to steer. Oh no! Can't follow them anymore.
Like, what the fuck? It's a tone I've never heard in a. I mean, any
theirs
recording,
is like
honestly.
echoey,
apart
like
from Dalek. Like that's the only thing.
Yes.
Well, but like that, like we'll need to find a place to land. It's like you're in Jerusalem.
Also, it's so funny to say that while you're in a helicopter, your co-pilot in the helicopter being like, "Yeah, I know." Yeah, man. I didn't think we were staying up here. I also plan to get out of the helicopter.
No, we live here now. We're married.
I would say the helicopter sound is a little bit too loud for me.
Yeah,
I would agree.
But that's just, maybe, I haven't been in too many helicopters. I understand they're unpleasantly loud to be in.
And incredibly dangerous.
I love I think it's prop planes, like the private, like they call Cessnas dentist killers in the aviation.
Oh, no.
community. Yeah. It's so good. Like, truly, helicopters have taken out so many celebrities.
There are dentist killers. There are dentist musicals. I can't wait to find out what the third dentist thing is.
We'll get there. I don't know how, but we'll get there. I promise. So we finally make it to the real dig site. And there's, I guess, a network of caves that they then have to go down into, and they just keep exploring it. And Whit lets us know a little bit more about this text.
The parchment I found said that the disciples had bribed the Romans so they could take Jesus' body and hide it, allowing them to claim that he'd risen from the dead.
Well, that's an old claim.
Sure. The writer then went on to say that the disciples buried his body somewhere in the Kidron Valley.
Wait a minute. Who is this writer anyway?
Believe it or not, the writer of the document claims to be Judas.
Judas? As in Judas Iscariot?
Yep.
But he killed himself after betraying Jesus.
Not according to this Judas. Ironically, this Judas claimed to be such a lover of truth and so ashamed of the disciples' lies about the resurrection that he dug up the body and moved it to the place of the towel. If the parchment is true, Judas was in cahoots with the Sadducees.
The place of the Tau thing is Tau is a Greek letter. It just looks like capital T. In the book of Ezekiel, people were marked with the T on their forehead, a tradition that continues to this day.
Oh, on
in
Ash
Christianity,
Wednesday, yeah.
With the symbol of the cross, which is a modified Tau.
It's really funny having the tone of this show shift just enough that you're like, oh, he's in cahoots. Like a few seconds after. But he killed himself. Like, that is such a brutal sentence to hear in children's media.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're
right. That's what happens when you grow up with the Bible. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, the incest rape scene.
Yeah. You kind of disconnect the idea that this is fundamentally about a man being tortured to death in the most barbaric and public ways.
There's the interesting thing about the tradition of the disciples bribing the Romans and absconding with the body comes from a Jewish gospel. Basically, there's a Jewish accounting of the life of Jesus called the Toledot Yeshu, which is largely a medieval text, but it does come from older traditions. So it's like around 900 or 1000 AD, where it depicts Jesus as the son of a Roman centurion named Pantera. And then he ends up finding the 72-letter explicit name of God from the temple, and then he starts to use that to work miracles. And then Judas Iscariot is called upon to stop him. After Jesus like, watch this, and he starts flying, Judas Iscariot then also flies up and they fight.
Like they're fighting in the air like Frieza and Goku?
Yes. Yes.
There's so much of this shit in like the Gnostic Gospels. Yeah. It is a blast sometimes.
And this
to stumble
isn't even like a
stuff.
Gnostic gospel in that sense. This is supposed to just be a slander of Jesus, essentially. And so then Jesus falls to the earth and dies any number of ways. Usually they're hanging him, but I won't go into it. But the interesting thing is that this use of Yeshu and the way that it's spelled is not your typical way of spelling the Aramaic name at the time, and it may in fact be an acronym that means may his name be stricken from the record. How he does is nothing remembered. Maybe I don't know. But
okay.
There's a fun little bit that connects back to the whole episode. That's the Brian Alfred guarantee, folks.
All right.
But so he gets the true name of God from the temple, and that gives him like the fucking end of game powers.
Yeah, he
around.
finds the whole 72-letter name of God and is able to do crazy.
So it's like when Sonic collects all the Chaos
Emeralds.
Emeralds.
Yes. It's Jesus Goes Supersonic.
I finally found a secure enough password that I've unlocked the secrets of the cosmos, and I'm gonna just kind of fly around with no clear goal.
There's some really interesting stuff in that mythology where it's like this is the time of Queen Helena, who was this Persian queen who converted to Judaism. She and her brother, who was also her husband.
Lucky.
Was he an admiral though?
An admiral
husband? Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Yes.
So she installed these two brass dogs, according to this tradition, outside of the temple so that if anyone walked in to the places they were not supposed to go and learned the 72-letter name of God, as they walked out, the brass dogs would obviously start barking at them until they forgot the name. And Jesus was able to avoid that somehow, and then was able to like keep himself from being hanged from a tree, for instance. So every time they were trying to kill him, the branches would break. So then instead they hung him from a stalk of cabbage because it's not a tree.
But it helps also when you can regularly go Super Saiyan.
Yes.
Like that'll get you out of a lot of predicaments. Look, we gotta close out the way that this episode ends, right?
Yeah.
Because
there are no Super Saiyans waiting for us at the bottom of this dig.
No, all we have is Well, actually, Professor Charles, it turns out, who is the guy from before, and also Benjamin.
Mansion full of teenagers,
Eugene didn't do such a good job of hiding, and as a result, he got tracked down.
Benjamin, let young Mr. Whittaker see your weapon.
This is my weapon, young Mr. Whittaker.
That's just good dialogue.
So Benjamin pulls out a piece.
So, well, it turns out there are no organizations. They never needed to tell us the organizations. Like, they just had a line explaining them and then had a line unexplaining them. It's just the two guys that Whit used to work with. And then Tasha comes in with a gun and she's like, yeah, Jason, I was able to follow you because I stuck a tracking device up your asshole.
Right. And then we get like 5 minutes of closing exposition for some reason.
Eugene is like, I don't know what to do with this. But what it turns out is they open the sarcophagus, and instead of having the bones of Jesus in it, there's just a bunch of jars that also have the Q gospel in them.
Right.
And one extra jar that has a letter that's like, hey, these are all fake. These were written by us, the Sadducees, in cahoots with a Roman governor in order to discredit Christians. It's all explained. Christians never go in too deep about these old documents. Don't think too much about science like some kind of a bitch. Just keep reading the Bible.
Congratulations. You found my lie, which I have debunked in the location I laid out in my lie.
We forgot to put bones here for some reason.
There is a jar full of signs that say crucify me, however.
Right.
In Aramaic, yeah.
And if that wasn't enough, by the way, if that wasn't obvious or overt enough, Chris, the narrator of the show, who opens every episode, well, she comes in to close us out as well.
I think Whit said it best when he told Eugene that we can't let our faith be affected by the latest scientific discoveries or archaeological whims. God's word is always true, even while man's theories and speculations come and go. As the psalmist said, the sum of thy word is truth, and every one of thy righteous laws is everlasting.
Yeah, this didn't work. This gave me just a lifelong obsession with extra biblical text.
That's right. This is like, again, this is the first moment I heard this. This like made a pit form in my stomach. That this was, yeah, just the thing of like, wow, I think that we can really say that, you know, I think they said it best where we don't need to have our faith be dictated by archaeological whims. The word is true, but you've just spent like so much time being like, well, where does the word come from?
Yeah,
these words cannot be trusted. And we've proved these words wrong. And so you've shown that these words can have words. You are trusting the words that is someone has gone in and put a letter in there that's like, we made it all up, just so you know, and don't worry about whose handwriting this is. There's no skeleton also. Like,
FYI, this shit is fake and gay.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
And this is how the owners of Hobby Lobby start a Bible museum that's made up basically of 75% fraudulent artifacts that they all purchased from the Islamic State.
Oh, right. Yes. They were bankrolling ISIS. I forgot about that.
And then when asked, are you coming back to Odyssey? Whit responds, you'll never know.
Very weird. Because he does come back.
So terrifying. Are you fucking kidding me? It's like, is he just going to appear one day behind you?
Yeah.
Like, God.
Yeah, he'll show up in his Al Jolson costume singing Mammy.
It's interesting seeing something that is so, I mean, for me, quite benign seeming in the, you know, ice cold fucking take, but it's very benign seeming, and then as soon as, you know, it actually reveals itself to you, you're like, at least for me, as someone who, like, I was raised in, like, not even raised, my parents aren't Christian, but I went to a Christian school, and so I was raised kind of like outside of the Christian tradition, but in contact with it. Like, the ways to hang out with your friends during the summer were to go to a Christian camp called Crusader camps.
Oh, sure.
And then you play the card games.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's how you found out about the card game, right?
No, the card game is a late in life obsession. I found out about Bible battles.
Really?
Okay, good.
They're all so good. They're all so fucking good. It's such a bad feeling to me when the moral of that story is, well, don't trust science, silly.
Yeah.
And it's from the thing starring an archaeologist. And
Yeah.
it's
Right.
The thing is, well, don't let your faith be dictated by archaeological whims, which is going to be taken to say like, well, don't worry, it's probably fake. But the story you've been telling is of someone doing an archaeological research, and then discounting something out of hand.
Well, I think the real message here is not actually like, don't let your faith be distracted by archaeological whims. That's not a real thing that any kid is going to be thinking about, unless, of course, it was raised by this episode. The real message, I think, that you take away from this is don't think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't trust them. You know what's real because you know what's real. And what's real is what we've told you is real.
That's right. Yeah.
And yeah, it's very upsetting to think of how well that hit. The only thing that is like offsetting that is how clearly it did not work. Like, it's such a poorly executed, as you said, piece of propaganda that it's so clearly, I reckon this is responsible for so much faith crumbling. Like, it's so poorly put together. And again, the only thing they say is like, well, yeah.
and there can be no evidence, right?
Yeah.
There can be no future evidence that can disprove anything we've told you, right? And that's where things get really dangerous, because it is a religion of unquestioning loyalty, but also unquestioning doctrine, which is really wild because that's not how most religions
What's
work,
weirder here is
right?
that this was an entire trilogy about asking questions from Paul McCusker, a guy who's asked a lot of questions in his life and jumps between different denominations and stuff.
Right.
So it's about questioning loyalty. It's one where you ask questions, but then you're supposed to be satisfied with whatever answer is given to you.
Yes.
So long as it's just straight from the Bible.
And not even necessarily from the Bible, but like from a position, from somebody who is in a position of authority who is giving you their interpretation of the Bible, such as, let's say, Dr. James Dobson.
Yeah.
And I think that just about sums up everything that we see with fucking The Project, with Whit's Endless Summer, with Adventures in Odyssey. So at this point, I guess, Tom, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on, hanging out with us. This has been so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. What a blast it is to see this horrible little, to lift up this rock and see all the horrible little fucking insects squirming underneath.
Yep. And now you have the horrible knowledge, and you will never be able to unknow it. But with that said,
welcome to my hell, Tom.
If folks want to follow you around, see what you're up to or whatever, what should they do?
Follow me on, I guess, Instagram and Blue Sky are the two ones. Blue Sky is really the only shit I'm posting on. Fuck Twitter. Like,
hell yeah.
The idea of making a Twitter account now is so crazy.
So funny.
So yeah, I don't post there.
I was on the fence for a while, but then I saw Elon eating a Big Mac on what's soon to be Air Force One. I'm like, I need my tweets.
And that made me be like, I don't know. I haven't posted on there in a long time. And I kind of finally was like, there's no reason to do this. We can just go ahead and do something else.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and check out Blue Sky. I'm over there as Tom Walker is good. And check out twitch.tv/Tom Walker. And if you like podcasts, check out Bigsofttitty.png.
All one word.
Which is my podcast with my sweetie pie. Yes, all one word.
Yes,
Bigsofttitty.png.
We'll include links to all of that in the show notes, so definitely go check those out. When do you stream, Tom? What time?
Like, I think American times, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So calculate that to whatever the time is where you are, and definitely
There's
check it out.
also compilations of a lot of that stuff on YouTube.
That's right.
Yeah, you can check out the YouTube.
Cool.
Yeah.
And also thank you, listener, for spending time with us today. If you're interested in hearing more of what we have to offer, we have a Patreon. It is patreon.com/worstofall. And if you go over there, you will get access to premium episodes. We release one every other week. And some of the stuff that we've talked about in this episode refers to stuff that we've talked about in the past, including the live show that we did in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So if you really want to hear exactly how that shit went down, check that episode out. We recorded it live, and it was a really good time.
Yep. Don't subscribe to us on the Patreon app on iOS. If you have an Android phone, don't worry about it. If you are using an iPhone or iPad, subscribe to us on your browser.
That's right. Go into Safari and type in patreon.com to do it that way. Otherwise, Apple takes $3 of your money every month for no good reason.
That doesn't go to us. That just goes to them. And fuck that.
Fuck that. Fuck that shit.
As we said before, this is the first introduction of Herlinger as Whit. We are now officially into the realm of Whit 2. And it is a wonderful, new, shiny version of Whit who is very warm and very welcoming with just an incredibly racist accent. But you know what? He doesn't do that all the time. It's just in this one. And it may seem like you are finally welcome in this town of Odyssey, but what I'm here to tell you is that they are still taking all of their same old shit and they're putting it on this on this enormous fork, like some sort of jumbo fork. But their goal is the same as it has always been, which is to take all of this religious dogma and
get it all in your mouth.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. See you next week.